to ensure that every child is challenged to reach his or her full potential academically, socially, and emotionally as they grow and develop into thoughtful, productive, and contributing members of society.
Thank you. Tonight we have a leaders report from the Crete-Monee Education Center to talk about student leadership at MEC. Do you need us down there, Mr. Warzel? Okay, absolutely. Come on.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Brian Warzel. I'm the director at MEC. On behalf of our staff, students, administration, I want to thank the Board of Education and our central office administration for allowing us to give this good news report. Each year, our staff is so excited to be able to present something that we've done for the year. And this year, our goal is instilling leadership skills in our students. And one of our pride and joys is Ms. Lorraine White. She's going to give you a little brief overview of what we've been doing this year. But she's been an outstanding student and coming to us, so we are so happy to announce her little presentation.
Good evening. My name is Lorraine White, and I'm a student leader at Crete-Monee Education Center. This year, the staff at MEC have been trained in Stephen Covey's Leader in Me based upon the 7 habits of highly effective people. The goal was to help the students at MEC find their voices and to have faith in our leadership skills. At MEC, we're afforded the opportunity to demonstrate our leadership skills in many different positions, some which include service learning projects to give back to the community, such as volunteering at Alicia's house, working with local churches on a variety of different projects, and our landscaping project in front of our building, Pyramid Talk, student ambassadors, student government, attendance assistance, internships, PBIS celebrations, food service assistance, daily announcements, changing the life. For me, Crete-Monee Education Center has given me the opportunity to almost double my credits in 1 year, participate in an athletic league, welcome the students to our building, be a member of Peer Jury, give back to my community, and to take on a host of other leadership roles. I really appreciate the district and Crete-Monee Education Center for giving students the gift of a second chance.
First of all, thank you, Brian. Magnificent job you're doing over at NEC with our children, our students, giving them not only a second and third chance to be productive citizens and stewards in our world at large, community at large. The young lady who just spoke, you can MC me any day. Okay. There's many opportunities for you to exceed in this world. So you keep doing what you're doing. Beautiful young lady, beautiful personality, and you articulated yourself very well, very well. So keep doing it, okay? And thanks again, Brian, and your staff for doing a great job giving our kids a second chance.
Brian, Judy, all of the staff at NEC. We wouldn't be here without you. You guys make it work, and you make it work for our students. And that's the most important thing that we can ever expect of you. And you do it with such demure. Nobody even knows what's going on. It's just happening. And I want to reach out and say thank you to the young lady who gave the presentation. I heard part of it while I was trying to get your slides going, so I'm sorry. But it sounded great. I'm very proud of our leadership program that you have at NEC, and you certainly show what it does for our students. So thank you very much.
I'm not sure what to add on top of whatever Oliver's been said. NEC, you guys did a great job, and your public speaking skills are tremendous. So thank you for sharing it. And don't be shy of trying to do something like this in the future.
All righty. I'm going to refer back to our opening statement with the mission statement. It's just to refresh our memories, to ensure that every child is challenged to reach his or her full potential academically, socially, and emotionally as they grow and develop into thoughtful, productive, and contributing members of society. And that's the marvelous job you guys do over at NEC to help these children become thoughtful and contributing members of society. This young lady is a sterling example of that. So keep up the good work, and thank you very much for all your efforts.
Well, what's left to say? But you did start out your presentation saying one of your goals was to help the students find their voice. So obviously you've reached that goal. You found your voice, and it's a wonderful, beautiful voice. I'm sure you're a great role model for the other students, and I know that's a credit to the staff and the teachers and everybody at NEC. So thank you guys all so much.
Is it be pronounced Marine? Okay, well, you did better up here on this stage than most adults that I know. So great job to you. It's not easy standing up here looking out at the audience and trying to figure out what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. So great job. Absolutely wonderful leadership abilities there. So thank you very much for coming and for sharing a little bit about your experience with us. As board members, we get reports back from the administrators, but very rarely do we get to hear from the students at NEC. So thank you for coming in and allowing us to see what it's like from the students' perspective. NEC's in my backyard. I stop by occasionally. I've been known to play kickball, softball, volleyball, whatever. So, I appreciate staff, Brian, Judy staff, what you guys do. It's a special things that you guys do, and I, for one, really appreciate it and look forward to hearing more reports like this back in the future. Do we have a date for picnic yet?
May 31st.
May 31st. What are we playing this year?
I think I'm busy for it.
Oh, June 1st.
June 1st. Okay. All right, we'll see you there. Okay. Remember, I have a bad knee, so.
Remember age groups. Remember age groups. That's all I'm asking. Age groups.
One more round of applause for everyone. Great job. Thank you.
If I just want to add, I see Dr. Hunt and all that have put in time to mentor. I did sneak in a couple of times over the past years, and my job has prevented me from providing any type of mentorship to the students at NBC. But I just take my hat off to Dr. Hunt and all that have put their effort and energy into supporting the kids. So thank you for allowing me to happen.
Public comment. First, Reverend Dr. James Hunt regarding special community forum. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. Seeing some of you for the second time today. Thank you for we're sponsoring the Monee Alliance of Churches. Is sponsoring a Love Monee Fest, and it's really a huge community service event, and so it's good to see some of the staff there, Dr. Clark and others. And so we hope to work with all of you going forward. My question is a follow-up to the Special Community Forum. I sent a letter back in November, and President Gasparo, you replied to it at the meeting, I believe, in January. One of the issues you said you were waiting for the superintendent and to have a meeting with the rest of the board. And so I'm following up to see when that Special Community Forum will take place, what's the date, and where are we right now? And I don't know if I'm finished.
Okay.
So,
Just to let you know, we did have our meeting last week. Was it last week? Last week? Our board workshop was last week? And we are meeting again for superintendent search. As you know, we're having a forum on Thursday, so I will bring it up and ask for dates from board members then. Okay?
thank you.
You're welcome. Next is Heidi Gonzalez regarding the All Youth Living for Life on May 18th. Welcome.
Eric, and I think it's our guests this evening too. So I just want to make the whole board aware, I don't know if everyone is aware, that we are having an all-youth relay for life this year on May 18th at Crete-Monee High School. And what the all-youth means, it means that only the students are participating, and they are each, the students when they register, they would have each signed up to raise at least $100 for the American Cancer Society. So I just wanted to share a couple of things with you. You might ask, why? Why are we having Relay for Life at the school, right? Was that one of the questions? Yes, excellent. So this is one of the things we brought up last year is, we are one of a handful of schools that doesn't require community service for graduation requirements. That being said, this is one thing that we can offer, and we will keep trying to offer our students for community service hours. And the one thing, we might require each meeting that those students come, that's an hour of community service. These two are our leadership team. That means they are actually planning. And students, 10 students actually planning the event. But the students want, the students have at their Relay for Life events. And the other thing that we wanted to bring up is a resume builder too, is because this is something Relay for Life and American Cancer Society is one of the premier cancer fighting organizations across the world. And these students put this on their transcripts for the resume for college as well as jobs later on in high school. They will be recognized for that. So I just wanted to bring up a couple of this. This is Luke and Catherine. They are part of our Luminaria committee. You guys want to say a couple words about Relay for Life?
I joined Relay for Life because I enjoy volunteering. I grew up volunteering in emergency courses mutually too. I learned that volunteering is always good and making people's time is always a good thing.
I joined Relay for Life to help others. It's a good cause, and makes me feel good to help other people. And either one of you probably know somebody in your world that had cancer or survived cancer. Tell me So the other question you might ask is, what can you do to help? Was that the other question I got?
That was it.
Wow, okay. So I have a list. First of all, we'd like to help us get the word out. We have probably between 50 and 80 students signed up right now for Relay for Life that is happening in less than a month. And we would love to help get the word out for that because I'm betting a lot of them probably don't even know that it's happening. We have a goal of $10,000. That means only 100 students raising $100, and we can raise $10,000 for school. Student registration, so that's what we're asking, to try to help us find those students that want to register for their teams and everything. Sponsorship, our clubs are sponsors. Guess what? Money goes a long way, and the sponsorships can help us too. The students are beautiful at this and asking, said, okay, if they want to climb in wall, how are we going to pay for it? So they know they need sponsors. They are doing exactly what they need to be doing and asking the right questions to get this event happening. And I guess that's about it. And if there's, I have these posters up here, and all the registrations and everything are on the URL online too. So the kids, they can put the app right on their phone and register within less than 2 minutes.
Heidi,
Yeah.
are you looking for adult volunteers?
Oh, yes, thank you for asking. You're welcome. So, and the other thing that we do, yes, it is an all-night walk. We go walks from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And each team is responsible for a chaperone. So for each 10 students, there are chaperones required for each team. However, since we probably will have over 100 kids, we will need adult chaperones too, to kind of help us laugh some of the kids and keep the activities moving along. There will be a DJ, there will be a band, and like I said, the climbing wall so far. So, yes, we will need more signups for adult volunteers.
And how do they do that? Through you or?
Yeah, through me, and again, my phone number is on here for the office, and we do have the meetings, we meet every other Thursday, and tomorrow, Thursday is our next meeting here at the high school. We do have chaperone forms available there too.
Thank you.
So do you need more of one?
Oh, that would be wonderful. I already signed up.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What about our district team? Aren't you going to mention us?
Yes, I certainly will. So this is kind of like peer pressure for y'all. Our superintendent, Mr. Ron Patton, is already signing up a district team for the Relay for Life of Crete-Monee County as part of his Power and Purple commitment. So he has already assumed responsibility to be a team captain for the theater event that's happening on June 23rd. And so you can see Mr. Ron Patton, if you would like to join that administration team on June 23rd, and then you may go our county wear and there's some of the teachers. All right.
Thank you. Good luck.
Next, we have Cynthia Hudson regarding residency update. Welcome.
Good evening, board. Good evening, audience. I have several concerns. One of my concerns is I would like to have an update on what's going on with this residency search. I would like to know where are we. I would like to know how much money we have spent so far on this. What I call a waste of spending. I would like to know how much money have we spent, how many families or students have we found to be out of district. I would like to know, was it worth it? Is it still worth it? Because it's still going on. I would also like to know about, you mentioned the search coming up for the superintendent coming up Thursday. That I would like to thank you all for inviting me. I do plan to be there, and I'm going to be there. And I'm hoping my presence isn't just a waste of my time, and that you all are really going to consider what we bring to the table and what our opinions are about these candidates that you've chosen. I would like to know that you all are going to enter this with an open mind, as well as the person that you pick to be superintendent for this district needs to have a heart. First of all, I want them to have a heart. And that heart, I want them to have beating mostly for our children. Everybody up here on this board should be fighting for our children. Everybody out here in this audience, including myself, should be fighting for these children, all of our children. These kids are facing things nowadays that we as adults can't imagine, but they're living it every day. The mentoring program that Dr. Hunt, Dr. Hall, and several other people are having throughout the district, they're very much needed now. We're living in a time where it's so extremely different than when we was coming up. These kids are facing so many things that we didn't have to deal with. And they're dealing with it and living with it every day. They need these mentoring programs. So I would like to know, what does it take to start a mentoring program or any kind of program or some kind of club? And do the district support different types of clubs? You know, don't just go by the book and say, well, it's not a soccer club or it's not a debate club. Think out the box, because these kids are living out the box right now. This is a dangerous time that we're living in. And all the mentoring programs that can come into this district, I would welcome if they're above board and being ran by above people. We need those mentoring programs. And everybody in here needs to take a look at it. Get involved, do what you can. I, myself, am offering my assistance to Dr. Hunt, Dr. Hall, and anybody else who have a mentoring program, because these kids need it. And I would love to help a child, because you never know what's going on in students' lives. Sometimes these students are facing things and it's so hurtful and so heartbreaking and so hard for them to deal with. But they got to be at school every day. They're trying to get their education upon dealing with all the crap that they're dealing with outside the school. So don't just look at a kid and say, oh, well, this kid is doing something wrong, going down the hall with hoods on or whatever. Find out why that child is doing that. Take an interest in these kids, because these kids are suffering. Some of them are really, really suffering, and they need our help. They need all of our help. And in order for us to help us, we have to have a heart. If we don't have a heart, we're going to create Columbine students. We don't want that. We don't want.
And so heartbreaking and so hard for them to deal with. But they got to be at school every day. They're trying to get their education upon dealing with all the crap that they're dealing with outside the school. So don't just look at a kid and say, oh, well, this kid is doing something wrong, going down the hall with hoods on or whatever. Find out why that child is doing that. Take an interest in these kids, because these kids are suffering. Some of them are really, really suffering, and they need our help. They need all of our help. And in order for us to help us, we have to have a heart. If we don't have a heart, we're going to create Columbine students. We don't want that. We don't want kids, staff, teachers, parents, custodians, or anybody getting killed because nobody took the time to find out what was going on in a child's life. That's all I ask. Just be human, have a heart, and most of all, have compassion for these kids, because they need it. And I also want to, you always ask me, have anybody gotten back and responded to any of my emails? No, you are the only one who've gotten back and responded.
I will follow up with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, under old business, I was going to ask Dr. Clark to give the audience an update on the residency program. There's a paragraph we had received the other day. If it pleasures the board, perhaps she could read that now, and Mrs. Hudson and the rest of the audience could hear the latest on the residency update.
Can we wait till administrative updates to do that?
Till when?
Administrative updates, that would be the appropriate time.
Whenever. I'm just saying it's here, you know, because old business will be who knows how many hours from now.
Administrative updates is right after board updates.
Thank you.
This is the easiest way from. Yeah, I just printed it all out. My phone. Yes, I attended the annual conference. I've been on the board for 9 years, and I think I've attended 8 of them. I do find them valuable and a way for board members to be learned board members and to make educated decisions, as well as speak with other board members from around the country and get ideas and come back enlightened. I'm passing out, or Mr. Surma, Van, not Vanna, but Van, is passing out some handouts. This is something that I've been talking with the board with for a while with trauma sensitivity. I wanted to give this handout. One of the things in that packet is what we've been talking about with ACEs, ACE, Adverse Childhood Experiences, and that's a list of some of the ACEs that students may be carrying. And so what trauma sensitivity is about is schools, school leaders, staff members being sensitive to the traumatic experiences that some of our students are facing. And the idea is the more traumatic experiences they have, the more that it affects their ability to make sound decisions, think rationally, build relationships, build trust, et cetera, et cetera. And now research is even looking at the trauma that groups of people have experienced. So you might hear the term historical trauma. And a lot of times you may hear it referenced to African Americans, Jewish people, Hispanic people, and also, groups when we think of sexual orientation, things like that. So this is important for us to understand because we are dealing with these children every day. And like Ms. Hudson said, a lot of them are dealing with situations that they're bringing to school and they're acting out of. And so if we're dealing with our kids, we have to take the time and effort to not only understand them, but also train our staff on how to deal with these issues because our kids are bringing those issues to school. And a lot of times they don't know how to separate the two. And so it actually helps our students, but it helps our staff as well. And so one of the, I think I told the board last summer, I went to a training at Governor State University, and it was a pretty cheap training. I think it was $25. But there are organizations that actually come out and train staff and leaders on traumatic experiences and being a trauma-informed school or school district. And so I've given you some of that information as well in that packet. So that was some of the things that were going, excuse me, that was going on at the annual conference with that. Also, I attended a session that was talking about youth voice, and you guys have heard me talk about that a lot, valuing the voice of our students to the point that we're actually including them in our decision making. Yesterday, the kids in the hall, we had our youth symposium, and actually some of our guests were students from Thornton School District that are on their student board of education. And those students actually contribute to a lot of the decisions that are being made in the Thornton School District. There are some districts that actually have student board members on their boards, and they may be ex officio members, but they do contribute to the conversations. Also, some of the things that they were talking about with youth voice, there is a movement of a collaborative effort of youth organizers across the country, and there are 13 specific organizations that have come together to form an alliance. And this group, you might be hearing about them, They're actually going around the country pushing for youth voice. And one thing that they're focusing on is how they're being treated in schools. So in their statement that they put out, some of the things that they've said were they want a divestment from school policing, comprehensive mental and emotional health services available to students, more guidance counselors and social workers, expansion of restorative justice education, investment in schools and teachers, protection for students and families, a concrete plan to end gun and school violence in all of its forms. So I wanted to share that as well. And another thing I wanted to share was in one of these sessions, a district was talking about in their state, they have actually outlawed out of school suspensions because they've had issues where kids are at home alone. They're at home and some tragic things have happened, or they're out in the streets. I know I've been out in stores and I'll see kids, and I'm one of those that'll ask, hey, aren't you supposed to be in school? And oh, I'm suspended, right, or out shopping. But so what they've done instead is they actually, if they're suspended, they spend that time in their alternative school. And so I wanted to bring that back as a thought, for us. I don't believe we've had any type of tragedies with students that have had out of school suspensions, not that I know of, but I do think that's something to consider because it serves the purpose of removing the student from that environment, but also our students are still in school and they have an opportunity to learn and also have restorative practices and also learn about their behavior and the consequences and how to change their behavior. So I wanted to bring that back. And the last thing I'm going to talk about, because I've probably got 4 more, but there is something called humanistic education. And what that is it's a person-centered teaching where empathy, caring about students, and genuineness on the part of the learning facilitator were found to be the key traits of the most effective teachers. And in that conversation, it also came out talking about in order for our teachers to have, to portray humanistic education, we must also, as a district, value our teachers in a humanistic way. And so just as we're expecting them to be empathetic and caring, we as a district need to be promoting that. And I know that we've talked about doing some things even in the recognition committee. Some of our schools are having wellness days for teachers. And I think we should look more into that and providing more opportunities to see, what's going on with our teachers and supporting them as much as possible, but also giving them those times where they can replenish and rejuvenate so that they can be the best that they can be for our students. And that's it.
I actually ran into the girls that led the student voice at the airport. I was trying to decide between 2 sessions and I chose a different session, and lo and behold, they were in front of us at the TSA at check-in. So I talked to them and I did get their board member's card. And she said, if we need information, that they'll be more than happy to send it to us, so.
Okay, so on Friday, I centered around, I tried to theme my classes so that I was getting the most bang for the buck, but yet still going to classes where I thought it would help me and the board members. So when we're done with this, I will give Terry all of the sessions that I went to and she can load them on the board book, the presentations for everybody so that we have that information to share with anybody on board book. I try to do that every year when I come back from a conference so that people who can't attend or don't go to that session, because we do try to not go to the same session so we can all get the information and bring it back. So on Friday, I took 2 classes. One was Educational Equity 101, and the other was Increase Your Diversity and Inclusion Awareness. It was both of those were eye-openers because they were both
everybody in the room doing, can't think of the word, like when you all do participate. We were all doing exercises or whatever you want to say. We're all doing different things and then moving to another group in the middle of it. And it really opened your eyes to what people thought, number one, equity was. Most people describe equity as equality, and you have to make them understand that that's not the correct definition. So there were exercises galore on equity and equality. I can't get them, you know. So that was very eye-opening to see that people across the country still were melding those two. And the diversity and inclusion awareness was some of the best exercises I ever saw, because again, we were moving from table to table. In the middle of the exercise, 3 people would have to move and you'd have to get into that exercise. So it really taught me a lot. So I was very pleased with both of those sessions. On Saturday, I started a session that was titled Imagine a World with No Summer Slide. And research shows that over the summer, math, they lose 2 months in their scale, and many times it's more than that. Reading can be up to 6-month degression. So many school districts are looking at adjusting the school calendar so there's not the big gap. And they're also researching how to provide hooking up with libraries and different organizations to run programs that children can go to continue their reading and math over the summer. Because what happens when they come back, they've regressed and we have to go back and get them back up to speed. So that was very interesting. Another one that was near and dear to my heart was embedding career and technical education in businesses. And more and more schools are looking to reach out to their local businesses and have their students go a half a day, 3 days a week, and the other half day they're partnering with a business to learn a trade, to learn about the business world. They may not like manufacturing, but they can learn accounting. So more and more they're using their local businesses to help in that educational piece. I took an effective response to student mental health issues, which is a growing concern across the country, as Dr. Hall kind of touched on in one of hers. Their main focus is we need to concentrate on that at an early age. Younger and younger, we're seeing issues, but we're not identifying them. We don't recognize them as a mental health issue. We call them behavior. And the reason the behavior is happening is because there is something behind that behavior that isn't right. And more young people are being diagnosed with mental health issues. So they are hoping to grow resources. I put myself on a list so that if there was any new resources or people were using different things or different ways, I asked that I be included with that information. So hopefully we'll get that as it goes along also. And my last one that I want to talk about is embedding social and emotional learning. It's a key component in many schools. They're focusing on getting that ingrained within their regular classes. And research does show that embedding it does raise the test scores. So that was a very good class. I wish there would have been more on special ed to bring back for you, Ellen, but there was one class. So just so you know, we get a survey at the end of these, and I let them know that I wasn't happy because I think that that's also a growing part of our school environment, and we need to be addressing how we're handling those things. So hopefully our next convention will have some more for you.
Okay, so I was able to sign up for a couple of pre-conference workshops on Friday. The first one I went to was Leading with Purpose, and we did discuss student leadership and students having a voice. One of the things that I found out was after I started really thinking, wow, this is something we can do. Most of the schools that do that are districts that are larger that have 4, 5, 6, 7 high schools. And what they do is they elect somebody within their high school, and then they have like almost like a mini board. So then that mini board meets, and their president then comes to the school board meeting and actually sits at the dais. So that was interesting. Found out that I knew that every state was different in their rules and requirements, obviously, but I found out that there are some states that have up to 11 school board members, and some as few as 5. So that was really enlightening to me, and I don't understand how they get anything done with that many board members. But also on Friday, I also went to the Increase Your Diversity Inclusion Awareness Seminar. And I want to add that was put on by 2 of our IASB employees. And it was probably the best workshop that I've been to at any of the III or national workshops. And I would like to bring Sandra and Nisha in to do this training in-house, Dr. Clark and Mr. Patton. I think it would be a fabulous thing to go through. And in my normal excited way, I volunteered to do something. I had no idea what I was volunteering for. I've only not volunteered to do something once, and our communications director and my vice president volunteered me to do it. So I've just gone through it now, and it's okay, I'm just going to volunteer. I actually had to be an outsider. They brought 5 of us out in the hall, and they directed everybody else in the room to get into groups. And whatever they did when we came back in, they were to make sure that we did not breach that group. They were the insiders and we were the outsiders, and they had to do every possible thing to keep us out of their clique. And it was a real eye-opener.
Not one of you breached.
Not one of us breached the inner circle. I really had to sit down and think about it. I think that it would be a very good exercise for central office staff, teachers, administrators, and even our students to do. So I am going to talk more to Sandra and Nisha when we go to the equity event at the end of the month, but I'm hoping that we can get that brought into the district in some capacity. So not to take up too much time, I'm just going to tell you the other sessions I went to. I went to an orange barrel alert, which was strategies to get yourself and your board on the expressway and out of the potholes. I went to a session on interest-based bargaining, seeing as we're getting ready to bargain one of our union contracts right now. I went to Sheltering Your Students, a guide to funding, design, and construction of FEMA safe rooms for K-12 campuses. I also went to the Creating Equity of Opportunity, Recruitment, Support, and Success for underrepresented students in AP and IB programs. Supported staff, supportive schools, how educator well-being shapes student achievement. I volunteered for that too, and had to get up in front of the whole entire session and give a little cheer. And while I was there, I was able to get 16.75 credits. The sessions that I went to that had handouts have already been given to Terry to put on board book. There are still a couple more that they say they still haven't gotten to, but as soon as they are put on the SBA website, I will get those downloaded from board book as well for other board members. So all in all, very informative session. Very pleased I was able to attend. And thank you all for the opportunity. And thank you for sending me.
I want to add something real quick. I did present at two workshops at the national conference, one on mental health with Black students, and the second one was on the Black Panther movie and what it taught us about leadership and engaging families, and that was well attended. That was a study hall session. I know the timing, yeah, can be crazy. But I just wanted to mention that. No, I don't think so.
Oh, so we can't see them.
No.
That would be nice, because then people could see them.
Yeah, no. Yeah, they didn't. That's a thought. I'll take it back. Also, I just want to mention real quickly, I think we all got this invite to go today to the event in Monee, the Love Monee. No? No? Oh. Okay, sorry. I don't remember who sent it to me. I just got one. But anyway, I did go, and Dr. Clark was there, Ken was there, and Natalie. And I did bring these back for the board members. It was basically a meeting of, what I had 6 leaders. How many got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. I think I could pass them down.
I did get one, and it was what I remember is it was a real long time ago, and I had actually put it on my calendar.
It was like in February or something.
Yeah,
like that,
but then I didn't really look at it until I looked at my calendar this morning, and I'm like, oh, I never RSVP'd. But yeah, it was a long time ago, and I don't think there was ever like a follow-up, so I apologize for that.
Yeah, but anyway, it's an effort of leaders in the communities coming together just to do some great things in the community, and they're, I guess, creating opportunities for that. And they're going to have an event in August, and I believe this outlines that Saturday, August 4th. And also Love Monee is Saturday, August 4th, and they also will have Love Beecher on Saturday, September 29th. And to my understanding, they're working on having them in University Park and Crete. The mayor of Monee was there. It was a lot of, people, just, leaders from the different villages and organization representatives. And it was just great to be in the room full of people that are just there to be positive and say, what can we do to better our community? So I want to make sure I did get it. I didn't know if you guys had the information, but I think this is going to be something that's very important. And if it at all is possible, that we should be involved in this. They expressed interest in wanting to connect with the school districts and basically bringing all of the stakeholders together, our churches, our schools, our businesses. And this is kind of what we've been talking about anyway. So I'm excited about it, and I hope we can take part in some kind of way. And they did say they would love to have volunteers from our students helping as well. So if there's any way to get this information out, I believe it was at Second Place Church.
Yes.
I don't know who the contact is. Does it say on here?
I believe
Dave
Pastor
Short, yeah,
DeVries
Dave
is
Short.
one of them.
Okay, and I know Pastor Kevin DeVries is,
Yes.
and Pastor Hunt.
Mhm.
And it's the Monee Alliance of Churches.
Right.
Yes, that have been involved in it, and I don't know how many, a couple hundred people there, maybe.
Yeah,
What do
they
you
had one
think, Michelle?
last year, and it was
How many
very,
people?
yeah.
Reverend Hunt, can you make sure that they have an updated email list, please? So that we all get an email on it? Thank you very much. I have a question for you, Dr. Hall. So I'm looking at this, and it shows like food, clothing, and book giveaways. So are these things that they did before and they were here today celebrating those things?
Kind of like that. So they did it, they did those things last year. They kind of did a review. They have, actually, I'll send you the link to the video, because what they had us do was to text a number, and when you did, it responded with a video, and they're asking everybody to just share it. Just
Okay.
share the
That would be
video.
great.
That would help people get involved with it, and they're looking for it to be even bigger and greater than last year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
talked to Pastor Kevin about it. Unfortunately, with today being tax day, there was no way I could take off of work for it, so. But I told him that I would help in any way that I could, so. Okay, any other board updates?
Jennifer, I'll text it to you, and if you want to send it out.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You know what, real quick, Dr. Hall alluded to the conferences and the speaking engagement that she participated in, and I did get the opportunity to see a snapshot of her speaking in front of this enormous crowd. So if we can get one of those photos and put it on the website, I stole shamelessly. So, but I was so proud. I really was. I was tremendously proud of someone like her representing our school district and in some capacity. So that kind of floored me, so to speak. I said, I'm so proud of you. So if we can get a picture, you know, she representing our school and put it on the website in some way, shape, or form, I would appreciate it.
Share your shamelessly stolen photo.
It was some Illinois people there that they knew I was from Illinois and they came. So I'm wondering.
So now we know. Hook up.
Any other board updates?
I would just like to give a quick shout out to the Crete-Monee High School Band. I want to make sure I get this right. The Wind Ensemble, Symphonic Band, and Jazz Band all received the highest scores in Division I state competition. So I'm not sure, it's either the first time this has ever happened for Mr. Tedeschi or the first time for the high school. I'm not sure Mr. Tedeschi wasn't able to return my email today, but. Oh, it's on the website already? Okay, great. Well, regardless, congratulations to the high school bands.
Do you know the answer?
Yes, it's on the website. No. Look on the website.
Was it Mr. Tedeschi's first time or the high school's first time for getting that, the top three in all, or the top in all competitions?
High school's first time.
High schools.
Wind ensemble.
In the symphony.
Very good. And our middle school band,
Yep.
you're going to state, is it?
Yes.
And that's
Natalie?
next weekend?
Natalie?
Next Friday at Manhattan Junior High School? Congratulations.
Can you, Natalie, can you step up to a mic so our people at home can hear what they got? So we can blow our, toot our horn a little bit here.
Mhm. But hey, tax season's over.
I don't really care.
You did when I was doing your return.
I don't see it, but it's all done.
I don't see it. It's loaded yet. Okay. No worries. I've got it here. If our electronics allows me to have it. Hang on 2 seconds. Yay, there it is. Thank you. Okay. So here it is. It is the Crete-Monee High School Band attended this weekend the IHSA State Music Organizational Contest, music contest. The Jazz Ensemble, the Concert Ensemble, and the Symphonic Band. The Jazz Ensemble was judged in 10 musical categories worth 5 points, and they received scores of 45, 45.5, and 46.1 out of 50, which earned them a Division I superior rating, making it the first time in school history that the Jazz Ensemble has achieved this level at the state. The concert ensembles are judged in 8 musical categories worth 5 points. The CMHS Wind Ensemble received a 36 point, 37.5, and a 38.9 out of 40, earning them a Division I superior rating. It's been 5 years since the ensemble, the concert ensemble, has achieved at that level. And finally, the Symphonic Band received a 36.1, 36.5, and 36.9 score out of 40, giving them a Division I superior rating from each judge and an overall rating of superior. This is the first time that the Symphonic Band has achieved this level at state, and is quite an accomplishment, as the band consists of underclassmen who are working toward achieving Wind Ensemble advanced status. It's very rare that both levels of band receive superior ratings such as these at state. It takes a high standard of excellence across the district for our students to achieve their best, said Mr. Tedeschi. Keep up the great work, CMHS. And we are listing all the students who are at each of those ensembles. I thought it would be loaded now because I posted it before I left, but it's not yet, but it should be up tonight when you see it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board updates?
Lorraine, I have a question. Is that a relative of yours? I thought so. I want to recognize you while your mom is here. I know she probably came to hear your presentation, but I want to let your mom know that you did an outstanding job, young lady. We're very proud of you. And
Fabulous.
And Oprah Winfrey better look out because she's coming. Congratulations. I know, Mom, you're very proud of her and the growth that she has experienced during the last couple of years. And there's nothing but the sky's the limit for her as long as she continues to strive for success. So thank you, Mom, for sending a very diligent, conscientious, committed young lady to Crete-Monee High School. Thank you.
And you'll be able to see it because it was streamed live and it'll be on our website, okay? Very good. Yes. This is what I like to hear.
I think she'll be a better electrical engineer
Whoa. And the fight is
that can
on.
speak well.
And in this corner.
Seeing as I've worked 17-hour days for the past couple of weeks, don't be an accountant, okay? All right, administrative updates. Dr. Clark.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As of April 13th, the National Investigations Update is as follows. To date, the district has 3,097 students that have been cleared. However, this number does fluctuate as we continue to enroll students and as students continue to disenroll. We have 396 open cases, which means these are cases that are still being worked upon. It doesn't mean that there is any issues, it's just that they are open. 101 students to be dropped due to evidence that suggests they do not live in district. No one has contacted CM201U or National Investigations to deny or refute the accuracy of this information. All families will receive letters regarding residency determination, meaning that they either was found to be in district or evidence suggests that they do not live in district. All families that receive letters stating that they are non-residents will also receive a letter explaining the residency hearing procedures. This information has been placed underneath the FAQ tab, number 9, with all the 2 letters that will go out to district families. So as we get updates, I will begin to add more information to that FAQ. Like I said, it does change because we're still getting more and more students into the district, and we are also having students disenroll for whatever reason, not because of this, it's just our routine. That's just what happens in our everyday registration office. The other piece to that is we will not have any final numbers or any cost savings or anything like that until the very end. In the letter, it does state that the estimated operating expense per pupil is $12,586.09. So we will still have to determine what that number is in the end. But if it is found that all 101 students do drop because of that, that would be a 1.271195.09 savings, 1.2 million, 1,271,195.
Savings of what?
Savings of what?
If they were to, and I would need Ken's help with this. So the per pupil operating expense is what we spend to operate each kid. When you multiply that times 101, it comes up to 1.2, a little over 1.2 million. How we get the reimbursements and all of that stuff, it comes from the office, but it's still going to be a loss to the district because we're not reimbursed 100%.
I see you looking over at me, Dr. Hall, and that. What happens with that expense is that is a per pupil expense that comes across on our AFR. If you have less students here, then that expense is able to be distributed over the other students. So that I think you said 2 million, something like that, $1.2 million then is able to be dispersed over the other students then. So actually the per pupil expense begins you are able to rise that because your divider is less students. Okay, so there was some discussion about the reimbursement of that money, that we get some full reimbursements. We don't on transportation. The amount of money that we submit for the claim, we only get reimbursed. I think we're about $1 million short of the money that we submit for the claim. So we submit amounts in the to the claim and expenditures of about $4 million. We get about $3 million reimbursed for that. So there's some expenses that are put there. The same thing happens with GSA or any other state aid that we get. We don't get the full cost of that. There's still some burden that is put on the taxpayers on some of those expenses.
So what was the amount that was mentioned?
About $1.27 million.
No, per student, the per pupil.
The per pupil, I think.
$12,586.09.
Right. So that's off of last year's audit. Off of this year's audit, it's about 13.5 now.
Okay, so when we arrive at that, can you know how this is calculated?
Sure.
We're looking at all costs. Some of those costs are exactly
right.
Fixed costs, structural, whatever.
Yes.
So we're going to have an assistant super business, whether we have 5,000 kids or 3,000 kids. So to me, that's not an accurate number to use when we're discussing this conversation, because some of that money is going to be spent regardless of whether that student is here or not. Also, we receive state funding based on the amount of students that we have, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So if we have that student in district, we're actually getting money. So I think if we're going to talk about a cost saving, we really need to have the correct number that we're talking about, and we need to determine what that actually is.
Well, what the state does say in the code is that you're able to charge out of district tuition 110% of that number that is from your audit, that 13.5 or that 12.5. So that's the number that is utilized when you determine the tuition cost.
Well, that's not a cost saving then. That number will be looked at as we could gain that money if we charge tuition, but it's not a cost saving. That's not a cost saving
But again,
number.
But what I also mentioned, though, is the fact that if those students weren't here, that expense, you raise that up because your divider is less students, so you'd be able to spend more on other students. And that.
But that's a calculation. I'm just wanting everybody to understand that's a calculation,
right,
and not the actual number. If we got down to the nitty gritty to really figure out how much we would be saving, that would not be the number.
Right, we're not going to say 1.27.
Right.
This is also why we said that we will wait until the end of the year, because you're not going to get that information that you're looking for until this is over.
Well, I think we're putting a false scene out there as being perceived by the taxpayers when you say, hey, we have 100 kids and it costs X amount, $12,000, we have $1.2 million in savings. I think we need to tell the whole story, because at the end of the day, for one kid that's not been in here, that's 2% less money from the pot of money that the state gives us. For every child, 2% less. So
Maurice, we can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Basically, get all the powers to be, get with one another and put the right story, the whole entire story out there. Just not say that we have 100 plus kids that's no longer going to be in this district, and we're going to say 12,000, 13,000 per child, which equates to $1.3 million. But at the same token, there's some loss on this side. I don't think anybody, again, want children's or kids or students to be in our district that don't belong. Okay, let's not go that way and talk about that anymore. But if you're going to talk about cost savings, let's get the whole story out there and get it right.
Which is what I've been asking to do all along. So I was asked to bring the update. So I brought the information that I was asked to bring. And this is the information that we have pertaining to what we know now. It's just an update. But I've been saying that since the beginning of time. We're not going to know all of the information until this school year is over.
I don't think that's the issue at least for me. When we're bringing updates and we're putting numbers out, That's what people think is
Misleading.
the accurate number. So if we don't know exactly what the cost saving is per student, I'm saying don't put that number out there because that is an inaccurate number. That's what I'm saying.
I will do whatever the board would like for me to do.
I want to make some comments too. If I'm reading this correctly, we have 396 open cases. So that could be from 0 to 396 additional children that have a problem. Could they could either be here illegitimately or not. We don't know that. So this 101 is a baseline right now, and there's 396 more to look at.
Correct.
So out of this 101, now these kids have to be educated. So at a classroom size of 25 or so, that's 4 teachers. So the cost of 4 teachers is factored into what we spent this year for these 101 children, because we have to educate them. They're here. And we did hire additional teachers. I know at Crete Elementary, we hired 3 teachers. Now, whether all these kids are from Crete Elementary, I have no idea. But the point of the matter is that additional staff has to be hired. So the cost of additional staff for the additional children in the district has to be factored into this cost, correct?
That is also correct.
Okay, so, if it's 101 or it turns out to be 201, that's at least, anywhere from 4 to 5 to 8 or 9 teachers. And the cost of their salary, their benefits, et cetera, has to be factored in. So if we're going to get an accurate count on the cost, I would like to make sure that all of that is taken into consideration, and that, what we're spending now for the 4,900 and some odd kids we got now, and we decrease that by that, common sense tells me we don't need that many more teachers. We don't have to hire as many next year as we did this year, because we don't have that many kids. So, when we look at how much money this is costing the taxpayer, because it's not us, we don't have any money, it's the taxpayer.
So on that note,
Please put all that into the equation, and I would like to get grade levels from this residency, find out the ages of these kids, so we know.
They never had ages and grade levels. It will take a lot longer because we didn't give them that information.
You didn't give them that information? Why would we not give them that information?
We gave them the residency piece because that's what they are looking at. So I will have to go back and manually do all of that.
Okay, well, we're going to have to figure it out for how many teachers we need anyway next year, so, right?
Right.
That'll be a registration, okay.
What else? I'm sorry. I wanted to make sure I'm getting everybody's information.
Well, I want to get all the cost factors involved so we can give the community an accurate figure on what it costs, and I agree with Mr. Brown that nobody wants kids that are not legal residents to be in this school district, because God knows we got enough kids and we all pay enough taxes to not have to pay more. So, we want good, honest citizens here, and fine, I agree with all that.
Mr. Trey, if I
Let's
could
get
just,
all the numbers.
if I could also interject too, and that I think one of the things that Dr. Clark is saying is the fact that we'd like to wait a little while till we get our final numbers for the year, so then we can go and start analyzing the costs. And let me just throw this kind of out there, so that right now there may be 300 cases that are open, but out of that there may only be 50, 100, 2, whatever it may be. But let's just say it's 100. You divide that over 12 grades, and you're really only talking about 8 children a grade, which really is not going to make a lot of difference in your staffing. Now, it may. I'm not saying it won't, but that's something we need to analyze so that once we get the final numbers. I agree with Mr. Brown and Dr. Hall when they talk about, looking at what the actual costs are. I think we have to do that. But again, that takes some analyzation on our part to look at what really is going to be, that cost. So I'd like to wait till we get to final numbers before we start analyzing this, because again, it may only be 100 students, in that. But I agree with Mr. Brown. I think the board's intent is to say, students that are not residents here should not be going to school here, but we need to get what that final number is at least.
Do we have
When
a,
do we expect that?
Yeah.
I won't know until the end of the year. We actually will register kids up until the last day of school.
but as far as the information that they have, that they've had for a while, do you have a deadline or any estimate as to the ones that they've gotten now? I understand that tomorrow we could have 10 people that come in to register.
Right.
But for those 300 that they have now, do they have is it a week-long process, a 2-week, a 10-week?
Yeah, a
No,
lot of
it
that,
just-
I'll share this, Dr. Clark, if you don't mind, in that I'm being involved in this. There's some cases that take a couple months because they literally will have to follow them and videotape them from a work to where they're going, to where they're picking up the child, to where they actually live. So there's some that are stretched out. So we can have a conversation with them and see if they can kind of give us an estimate. Please know too that, there's these one-off, but I was going to the Monee luncheon today, and as I'm walking out, a woman was coming in, getting a registration packet, asking me about a registration packet to register her child and that. So that's a constant flow, but those are those ones and twos. So let us have a conversation with investigation, and let's just see if they can give us a time frame. I guess I would say off the top of my head that I would hope by the end of the school year they have that resolved, so that as we go into the next school year, we'll have the residency status established for all of our students. They will know that, and we will then know what that final number is. So we'll work with them on that.
Okay. And of the people that have received letters, nobody is contesting the letters.
No one has contacted me or NI.
And how many letters have gone out?
I will have to call to get the total number because it doesn't come from my office. My heading is on there, so they can contact me, but everything is sent through NI.
And have we made efforts to contact those families?
On the letter, it tells them specifically what needs to be done, who to contact, and how long they have to do it.
But
That
we haven't contacted them.
No, they are to contact us.
That's part of their service, right?
Well, that's typically how it is done. We tell you exactly what we find. We show you the evidence. You contact us if there's a problem.
And on the other side, the preventative part in registration, I believe in being preventative on the front end, not to the point where in the past we've actually had people overstepping their boundaries in registration, asking questions they should not be asking. And I guess that comes with training. But what are we doing on that end to, as best possible, should not be here or don't have a valid residence?
National Investigations is going to be there, right?
They are going to be there, but I also want to point out that it's not the training piece of it, because they do go through trainings. They're going through training right now for this, and we're trying to find how things kind of went south, for lack of word. But when you have families that are coming in like we register thousands of families all the time on a daily basis when we do the walk-in registrations. It is going to be difficult to catch every single one, which is why we're glad that NI is going to be there with us. But like I said, just a perfect example, the young lady that I sat down with who had forged her documents did an outstanding job of scanning information and changing the data to represent this was her information. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but the fact that you have to look at the actual lettering to determine that this was a forged document, we don't have a lot of time to do that when you have hundreds of families waiting to be registered. But just so happened, it was just one of those days that it was caught. And when I, called her, she was apologetic, and we were able to get her what she needed, but that takes a lot of time. So yeah, we're going to miss some. It's not perfect.
I just personally asked one thing so we can put closure on this. It was said, it was rumored that a bus was waiting to pick up kids at the Metro train station in University Park to pick up kids from Chicago illegally and bring them to the school district. Have you heard of that? Could you put closure on that?
We do have a bus that picks up
This
there.
is what happens. We do have homeless
illegal
families
kids?
that,
No, they're
That's
we
what
have
I'm-
homeless
I'm-
families that we provide transportation for, and they can come from all over.
I'm sorry, say that again?
We have homeless families that we provide
These
transportation
homeless
for.
kids are legally
Correct.
allowed to come into our district.
That is
On
correct.
the contrary, I'm being told rumors. I don't deal with rumors, but it's coming from many directions, from dignitaries coming my way, neighbors and all of that, saying that I've been told that kids illegally are coming from Chicago via the train, getting picked up by a bus at Metro train station.
They're probably just making that assumption that it's illegal.
that's-
They probably don't understand.
Okay, so-
McKinney-Vento, the Homeless Act, they probably don't understand that we have an obligation to educate those children and that we have to provide transportation for them. So,
Publicly stated, there you go out there.
yeah. And when people have come to me, I have made sure that I set them straight. So,
Thank you so much.
I just want to make sure I have everybody's information. Was there anything else you would like to be presented once this has come to conclusion?
just general statement that none of the board members, and I'm assuming I'm speaking for everybody, wants to put any kids out. If you are honestly and truly homeless, we are always there to help. We will do what we can. Dr. Clark is very good about getting those students registered, getting them the services that they need. So,
And we also work with the other districts as well. So we're not just putting them off or kicking them to the curb, as I've heard. We are connecting them to their right residential home attendance centers.
So what are we doing with that family that we have tentative data or data that this child or student is not or does not belong to our district? And so further investigation is pursuing, and only to find out that that kid does in fact belong into this district. But that undue burden. So do we have cases like that?
No, anything that's being presented will be concrete evidence. No one is going to a home saying, I don't think you live here, and when I find out the evidence, I'm going to prove it. That has never been stated to me. No one has called me. No one has called NI. Everything we receive is concrete evidence moving forward, which is why we had the legal documentation drawn up to let them know the process. So even with that information, you still had the right to say, I don't believe this information. I do live here and I have the documentation to prove it. So you still have the opportunity to go through a process, which includes a hearing to be heard by not just the Board of Education, but the Regional Office of Education as well. And all of that is stated in the letter. And it is also on our website.
I'm sorry, of those 396 open cases, none of those families have been approached by NI or anyone else and told, we think you don't live here, prove it. They're not told anything until it's been proven that they don't live here, and that's when they get the letter. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So in between, they're not being contacted and asked for information or told anything.
No.
They don't even know they're an open case?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
This little summary, is it on the website so that all the interested parties in the community can see this, please?
This is information that I provide to the board. Information like this changes daily. So on Tuesday, I gave you a set of numbers, and then when I did this update 2 days later, it changed. I don't want to continue to put information out there that is not accurate because it changes all the time. So I will give information like the letters that we sent out. I can give you information like how many students suggest that they don't live there, but that number is going to change. When I go back and talk to them on Friday, we're going to have a different number.
Okay, so, I'm going to speak to Mrs. Hudson in the audience. Are we clear that where we're at on this so that you know that there's the numbers that she gave you? Do you understand where we're at and that it's a fluid system? There's 101 people right now and 390 some odd open cases. Does that answer your question, ma'am? Where are they coming from? Can we provide that
I
information?
can share that information. The last time I received that information from National
Part two.
Investigate. You want me? Okay. The last time I received that information from National Investigation, I shared this with the Committee of the Whole as well. At the time I shared it, it was back in February, and we had what we looked at as, and this has nothing to do with these particular letters, but just returned mail. Remember that conversation at the Committee of the Whole? It did not suggest that families were non-residents, just that we had returned mail on families, and it was 110. When we went back to, it was downgraded or downsized to 98 because we learned that families had just moved and did not give us new addresses. But of those 98, we had 53 from University Park, 3 from Monee, 23 from Park Forest, 17 from Crete, and 2 from Chicago Heights. And that was just return mail. It had nothing to do with residency. But of course, those names would be forwarded over to NI to look at because we had return mail. Does that make sense? Okay.
If you can get that information and also what we've paid to date to National Investigations, that would be
That
great.
I didn't bring with me. I would have to go back and look because I haven't did my monthly run yet. So to repeat the information, 53 from University Park, 3 from Monee, 23 from Park Forest, 17 from Crete, and 2 from Chicago Heights. Not in this particular number. Not to say that it won't come up, but not in this particular update.
I think to be clear, you're providing this as an example of when you got the return mail on that batch. This is where they came from.
didn't
This
happen
is
to
not
be any
all
from Beecher.
inclusive of everything
No,
you've
and it
done.
has nothing to do with residency. It was not from National Investigations. This was just
An illustration
went-
of
yes.
the return mail that you received.
Exactly, that is it.
Okay. Well, if you can bring us a more accurate update with everything at the next Committee of the Whole meeting, that would be great.
Okay, and I also had Mrs. Nash to put the FAQ up on the
Can't
screen
see.
behind you, and if you go down to number 9, you will see the residency documentation that was sent to the Board of Education as well. This is also out on our website for our community to view.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
FOIA update?
For the month of March, we only had one FOIA. March 001, electronic records for the 2017 school district's milk business. Jonathan Benacardi, it was filled 3/8/18. There were no documents responsive to this request, 1 hour to complete. And that completes our FOIA request for the month of April.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Patton, would you read the consent agenda?
The regular consent agenda approval, the regular meeting minutes of March 20th, 2018, special meeting minutes of March 21st, 2018, special meeting closed session minutes of March 21st, 2018, special meeting minutes of March 27th, 2018, special meeting closed session minutes of March 27th, 2018, special meeting minutes of March 28th, 2018, special meeting closed session minutes of March 28th, 2018, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of April 10th, 2018, Committee of the Whole closed session minutes of April 10th, 2018, special meeting minutes of April 12th, 2018, special meeting closed session minutes of April 12th, 2018, special meeting minutes of April 14th, 2018, Special meeting closed session minutes of April 14th, 2018. And under business, approval of accounts payable, approval of the payroll, and approval of the treasurer's report. And then donations.
I'll read them after it's approved. Any questions? Roll call?
Mr. Teray,
Aye.
Mrs. Root,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Nay.
Mr. Albrecht,
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye, Mrs. Gasparo.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. We have 2 donations. The first one is to Pastor Brian Nutter. Dear Pastor Nutter, thank you very much for allowing our Balmoral staff members to park their vehicles in your parking lot on Friday, March 16th, 2018. By allowing us this courtesy, we were able to provide parking for our grandparents and Special Persons Day guests on school property. Our annual Grandparents and Special Persons Day is always a very popular event that honors our school's ongoing connection between home and school. Balmoral believes our special people have an honored place, and it shows the amount of people that attend. This year, we had 428 guests in attendance. Thank you again for contributing to our successful event and for your support of our scholars and staff. Sincerely, John Tell Perkins. We also have a letter to Mr. Paul Legasty from Waltz Food Center. Dear Mr. Legasty, on behalf of the Crete Elementary family, please accept this thank you for everything Waltz Food Center does for our school. Your recent donation of the delicious bakery donuts for our math and science night on March 7th is greatly appreciated. We are truly thankful for the wonderful area merchants who make our school year special. Sincerely, Aaron Lane. And that's it on the donations. Okay, action reports, business, Mr. Surma.
Thank you. The first action item is a resolution to recommendation by the administration to approve a resolution to place on the ballot in November the county schools facility sales tax in Will County. In order for that to be placed on the ballot, districts need to approve it that will represent at least 50% of the student population within the county. So this would be a resolution that would give our district support to that process, and then we would have to see how the rest of the districts are going to either approve or not approve that resolution and that. If it is approved, our resolution would be signed by the board president and secretary, and then that's passed along to the Regional Office of Education, where they will tally everything once all of the boards had voted on this. Our recommendation is to do this. It would place a 1% sales tax on all things that are taxed right now, and then that money would be distributed amongst the schools in Will County if passed at the November election by a simple majority. And that money could be used for capital projects or payments of bonds for capital projects. The estimate revenue to our district would be about $2.2 million.
Okay, and if we pass this tonight, just make it very clear that it doesn't mean that we are passing a tax. It just means that
Right.
we support putting it on the ballot for the voters to decide.
For the voters
Is
to
that correct?
vote, yes, exactly. And in fact, I believe in the resolution is exact language that would go on the ballots also. So it's just approving it. You would approve it for it to be placed on the ballot as long as there is support from the other districts that represent at least 50% of the students within Will County.
I got a question for you too. I have a very bad taste in my mouth from the lottery years ago, and that money was guaranteed that it was going to go to school funding. Well, our wonderful legislators put it towards school funding, but they put money in the left pocket and took it out the right pocket. Okay, and it's a shell game. You know? So and they never corrected that that money must be used and only used for education. Is there any kind of wording in this proposal from Will County that mandates that money go towards schools and only schools, and there's no putting it in the general funds or any of this other malarkey that went on down at Springfield, so that that money cannot be used for any purpose other than schools. Do you know, sir, if that wording is in their proposal?
My understanding is, yes, that wording is in there, but first, the title of it is, it's actually called the County School Facilities Sales Tax. So it does have to go directly to the schools and distributed. My understanding of the process is once that, as that tax is collected, it goes directly to the comptroller, who then divides that money up immediately once if it is passed in November. And that, so it can't be sidetracked in that. There's also wording in there that says it has to go towards facilities. It cannot be used in the general fund for any other type of operating costs, but facility, either repairs, construction, maintenance, and that.
Okay, I just want to make sure because, they pulled the wool over our eyes with all that lottery money.
Sure. Sure.
And, and that's never been corrected, and they've had a zillion chances to correct it, so.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
So help me understand. So this was passed into law in 2008. So this is the legality of it's on the books. Who's sponsoring it in Will County to put it on the ballot?
Any school district can rally, I'll just say this, can rally the troops. So what has happened is the school district, I believe it's Peggy Manville, who is a superintendent at New Lenox 122, has begun a process of talking to school districts. There was a presentation that was made to all the business managers, Will County business managers, about this. So while it's been there since 2008, each county determines if they want to pass this countywide. So it has to be done on a county basis, the way it is set up. It's just, something that has come up now as funding has gotten limited. And again, as we all know, our facilities are really deteriorating and, having the money to spend on those. Annette.
I'll add, so yes, the basis of this is just what we've gone through in the last 5 years or so with the state and failing to pay and prorating. So it's an effort for, everybody always says, Illinois is a local control state. So it's an effort of local districts saying, look, we can't rely on the state to give us the money that we need. So this has actually been passed in some counties. And it actually came up, I might have mentioned this before, it came up at the delegate assembly at the Illinois Association of School Boards III conference, and it failed to pass there. And what they were looking for was just, does the body want IASB to fight for this? And the vote failed for them to, bring this, to lobby for this, basically. So, and I share some of the same concerns. I'm all for putting money, all of that. My concerns lie with kind of what Mike is saying. With the lack of certainty with what has happened in the past, and also I don't feel like a specific plan has been outlined to the point of this is exactly what's going to occur and all of that. For me personally, as a board member, I think it's just a little too early. Maybe they could have done a better job of really getting the plan out to Will County. And I do understand that a lot of times in order to move forward with something, you have to have a resolution from a board saying, oh, okay, we'd be willing to, we support this going on, to the voters or whatever. But I just have some reservations about it.
I think that a lot more information is going to come out once resolutions are passed and we know if it's even going to make it onto the ballot. Definitely a work in process, but I think that we have a time deadline, I believe, in order to get this on the ballot. And ultimately, it's really up to the voters. All we're doing is saying, yes, go ahead and put it on the ballot. More information will come. We are going to need to have educational sessions for all of our stakeholders. But bottom line is,
yeah,
we don't know what's going to happen unless we try.
Right. I believe the deadline actually is in August, so there is some time.
I thought it was May.
No, they're asking if the boards can make a decision by May so that then they can start doing some groundswelling work to get the information out to the community so they can, so they understand what the impact would be and all of that too. So they're asking those reach out. I do know, I shouldn't say I do know, but I have heard that Plainfield has supported this and their board has passed it. I just received notification that Joliet 86 is not going to take it to the board, meaning that I believe, excuse me, that they're not supporting it. So there's a lot of difference of opinion of it, you know, in that. So I do know the way it is written that the money has to go towards facilities. It cannot go towards anything.
Which we
So-
desperately need.
Right, right. We know that.
And, I personally, you finish again?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Personally, I was all for this when it first came to
Yeah, me too.
the board of Crete-Monee 201U about 7 years ago. And, I thought it was a diamond in the rough, so to speak. But things has changed. This is me speaking here. Things has changed. A lot of moving parts out there, especially when it comes to taxes and the new tax law that's going to impact a lot of people next year. And I just see, you heard them nickel and diming. I think we're just getting to the penny level here, a penny there, a penny there, a penny there, a penny there. I think it's just going to impact. Again, we had Crete passed a 1 cent, I believe, tax increase a couple of years ago. And I think it passed for the most part, like people going out saying it's not going to impact the taxpayers in Crete as much as they think. But that's if you don't shop in Crete.
A 1 cent.
A 1% sales tax.
Was it 1%?
1% on like groceries and things like
Right,
that. Yeah.
right. And we're
You said
talking,
1 cent.
did I say, well, that's even worse then. That's even worse. Yeah. And this is
I think it was, how did
what
they
is-
gather those
Well, you
pennies up?
said the penny.
Yeah.
not the 1 cent.
Okay, well,
Sorry.
Penny, and how much are we talking about here? Oh, it's generating revenue. I'm sure it is. So it's going to generate revenue, but again, it's just how the taxpayers is going to be impacted. So I personally can't support it at this time, only because of all the things that has happened. Yeah, we need money. That's right. We need money. Got a lot of expenditures out there and very few revenues coming in.
But just to be clear on what this is, it's a resolution that we're saying we
Understood.
think it's worth the
Understood.
taxpayers making a decision for it. So just wanted to be clear on that.
But I have a
Okay.
question, because it was proposed in different ways from the way I understand, and now all of a sudden, we have to jump on board for the 1%, is that correct? We don't have a say-so, like
Initially,
originally
it
it was gonna be a 20.25, then go up to 0.50, then up to, it was going to work its way up. Now all of a sudden, we're starting at the highest amount.
Right. So
And I have an
there,
issue with that, because why are we starting at the highest and hitting them the hardest? I
Right.
don't understand.
there
that.
are.
Why do
excuse
we
me.
have to do it that way? Can you
You
explain that
don't,
to
you
me?
don't have to do it that way. However, the resolution that goes on the ballot, the wording that goes on the ballot has to be very specific. So when you pass the resolution, that has to be very specific. So what I think Peggy did was that she just decided to share out there that to go for the maximum of 1%, and that you can have various versions of this. However, you have to make sure your resolution is exact. And the other thing to say to that is that every board has to pass the same resolution and that's where the 50% comes in within the county. And that, well, they have to, everyone that is in favor, the resolution has to be the same. So like one can't pass and say 0.25%, one can't say 0.5. It all has to be the same percentage and all that. They just decided to, when Peggy started doing this, she just decided that's what she was going to share out to everybody, to do it at 1% and that.
Okay, so I guess I'm confused. Why was the other option ever explained to us? If we knew it was going to be 1%, why did we have that other presentation?
I think we shared that it could be anywhere from 2.5%. I mean, you could even go down to 0.1% if you wanted to, and all that. Or the penny. But
It's all relative.
again, they just decided to start it at 1% because they knew that they were going to be there eventually. So they said, let's just start it at 1%. That's just the way they
So
approached
when we
us.
got the presentation, we didn't know it was going to be 1%.
No, did
And
not
then
know.
they came back
Then
with
they came back with the
1%.
resolution as 1%. And
Because
that's
I
what
was
they said
sticking
they
at
were
that
sharing.
0.25.
Well, we
Right.
knew it could be 0.25 to 1.0. That was
But-
explained, but you want to read what the title of the resolution
Let
would
me
be?
just mention one thing if I can, please, is that the total amount that they feel that's going to come from this is a little over $60 million that's going to be generated by this, of which we get 2.2 million. Okay? Of the 60 million,
Specifically for capital improvements.
specifically for capital improvement. So
Can we
that's
use it
the
for life
estimate.
safety?
Pardon me?
Can we use it for life safety?
Yes, you may. Yes. Annette.
Okay, so.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, we have a copy of the resolution, and on here, I asked Jen about this. I think we should read it so that everybody has heard the resolution. So I'm going to go slow, and if you have any questions, they go to Ken.
And do we need
We don't have to
a
have a
motion?
motion first.
No. No, we don't.
We don't.
We did check with that.
Okay.
Okay, so resolution of Crete-Monee School District 201U directing the regional superintendent of schools for the county of Will, Illinois, to certify to the election authorities of said county the question of imposing a retailer's occupation tax and a service occupation tax to be used exclusively for school facility purposes for submission to the electors of said county at the general election to be held on the 6th day of November, 2018. So that's how the actual resolution would appear on the ballot, correct?
No, that's the
No.
title of our resolution.
Okay, so that wouldn't be the exact wording on the ballot.
That would not be the exact wording.
Okay, just say that again.
It doesn't say that's just the
No.
title of the resolution.
That's all. And I'm supposed to read it out loud according to this, so that's why we read it.
So you'll see in that first paragraph right under there is where the 1% is, at a rate of 1%. Which one are you? Oh, I'm looking at this one. I'm sorry, I'm looking at this one. So that's on, I'm looking at page 142.
Because on here it says I'm supposed to read this out
Yeah,
loud,
there's
but it
two of
doesn't
them.
give the
There's two of them,
information.
actually. There's this one.
142?
Yeah. So this is where it says the 1%, at a rate of 1%. Right. Schools. So that's the one. Okay.
Okay, so, but this is.
So that beginning one, yeah, this is the beginning one that says.
So this is the
we
one
want
that
you.
needed to be addressed to the board?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
So we did the right one?
yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So 1% is what the committee that's putting this together has decided. If we pass this resolution, all we're doing is saying, yes, Will County, go ahead and put this on the ballot. Let's bring it out to the voters. Let it be the voters' decision. If the voters decide to go for it, and it passes, then at some point, we could potentially get $2.2 million for capital improvements.
Yes.
If we say, yes, we'd like to approve this, we pass a resolution, it goes to the Will County Regional Board of Ed, it goes on the ballot, it doesn't pass, we haven't done anything, we're not out any money, we haven't
No.
hurt anything, and
You're
it's
right.
ultimately up to the voters.
Yes.
Well, rewind, you missed a step. We can approve it, but we need more than 50% of school boards in Will County to
Right.
approve.
Yes.
So it might not, we
In
might
order to
pass
get it on
it
the
tonight, it
ballot.
might not even make it onto the ballot.
Yes, exactly right.
So here is my other part to my question. If tonight we decide that we're going to go forward this, how are we going to educate the public about what this really means to us, how it affects things? How are we going to do the right thing and make sure they understand that we're not just looking for more money? There's a reason behind this and what it would be used for. Do we have a plan how we would get out to our constituents?
You mean prior to it
And I think
being
legally-
elected by more than 50% or after the fact?
After, when we know it's going to be on the ballot, how
Okay.
are we going to educate the public?
Well, I don't think, and Ken, you can correct
Go
me
ahead.
if I'm wrong,
You're
with the
right.
superintendent,
I know what he's going to say too. so go
that,
ahead.
that I don't think at least the board could participate and try to advocate when
No,
it comes
but
to
I'm saying
referendums.
People may not know what it is. How are we?
Right.
said.
And so and Mr. Brown is exactly right. I know where he's talking about in that. So when it comes to this type of thing, the board and or all the staff members in the administration are not able to give an opinion of that, but we can share facts on that. So again, we would have to work with Natalie and also then our Regional Office of Education to determine what the facts are and to pass that along. We can pass that along to our community in that.
I'm assuming there's going to be a big educational session.
I would
that
think
comes
so.
Forth from whoever this committee is. That
Right.
has
I
started
would think
this.
so. That Peggy would have some input into that and give us, normally in these situations, they'll give us, a framework of how to structure everything. So everything is the same, everything is uniform, as we move forward. So, we would work with Natalie on that and develop those type of strategies and that. But again, as Mr. Brown was alluding to, we have to be very careful with election laws and that we don't put our opinion into that. The board is in the same situation. However, as citizens, you can, but acting as board members, you cannot. So there's a real fine line there with the board members.
Right, and I know people are going to ask for explanations, so that's why I'm like,
Sure.
if it gets on there, where do we go from here? So I
Right.
think we need to be prepared for
Yeah.
how we're all going to.
Right, and it's
answer
just,
that.
it really is giving you some fact sheets, and that, so that you have those talking points. So when someone asks, what's this about? You can talk to them without, giving your opinion of
I
that.
like the prepared fight.
Yeah,
sheet.
I
like that.
agree.
So right now, we need to make a motion and we have to make a decision, vote as to whether we're going to approve this resolution. So can I get a motion to approve the Will County School Facility Sales Tax Resolution?
Moved.
I will second it. Roll call, please.
And
Was there any other questions?
Does she have to officially read the resolution now? That was because
I did it,
that was kind of strange, I guess.
because it said it on here.
What? As far as what?
That I had to read it.
No, I'm just the process, as far as
Speak up, lean forward into your.
the process. Terry, you good at this. We had all the dialogue before we actually had the motion.
We don't have to have the motion before because a lot of times what happens is we wind up not,
We changed.
we change the motion and
Which way to
it
do it.
changes having to table and alter and rescind. So you can have your discussion before you make the motion. That is,
Take your vote, Madam Secretary.
Well, thank you, sir. Mr. Albrecht,
Present.
Mr. Brown,
I like that. Present.
Dr. Hall,
Present.
Mrs. Roop,
I didn't hear you.
She said
Mrs.
present.
Roop. Aye. Mr. Teray,
No.
Mrs. Galbraith is a no. Mrs. Gasparo?
aye, motion fails. That doesn't mean we can't bring it back at another time.
It's all Mr. Brown's fault.
Talking.
You had a couple ayes.
Absolutely. Mr.
Terry-
Albrecht was
Terry's
present.
Confused and thrown off.
Mr. Brown was present. Mrs. Galbraith is nay. Mrs. Gasparo is aye. Dr. Hall is present. Mrs. Roop was aye. Mr. Teray, nay.
We had
So we
everything-
have 2 ayes and 2 nays, so the motion fails.
had everything but abstain in that one.
Well,
That's Ken.
What did I do? What did I do now?
okay. Item number 2, Ken.
Ken, you're up.
Oh,
still
I'm
up.
sorry. Mr. McLean, could you please, Mr. McLean has been involved, our Director of Building and Grounds has been involved in the bid process for the next couple items. So I'm going to ask him to address the board on this, to get them up with this. And he supplied the bid documents for this and that. So Keith, if you would, on the dump truck.
Okay, I think the first thing I'll let you know is that there's a typo on the recommendation. Looks like as soon as I saw it, I put my fingers on an exercise program because I could see I hit the 3 twice.
Oh, I fixed that.
Did you? Okay, the cost is $9,344. Thank you, Terry. Basically, it's a maintenance issue. The dump body on one of our dump trucks is just rotting out. It's a 2008 body, and the dump truck itself is fine. It's an extended cab dump, so it's well worth keeping that chassis and putting a new dump body on it, which is just the bed itself. We can use our existing hoist. I've opted to go with a stainless steel. It's the way the price came in, for about $1,500 more than a coated steel bed. We can get this stainless steel, which is outlast the chassis, and will be adaptable to a new dump truck, down the road when we opt for a new dump truck. So, again, I would recommend stainless steel bed. A lot of municipalities are going with these now. You can see Crete's got a couple. Monee, I think, has got one. So everybody, as they're losing their dump bodies, they're going to the stainless steel.
And Keith, we do have this in the budget, so it is a budgeted amount and all that. So it's in the budget. It's not an extra expense. Okay.
Just for my information, how many dump trucks do we have and what do we use those primarily for?
We have 2 dump trucks. This one, like I say, is the extended cab. So we use this for crews like that or moving dirt for summer projects. But their sole purpose, the one, their main purpose is salting. We have salt spreaders that go on both of these dumps. One heads out west, one stays on this end. One basically has to do just the high schools, time-wise. And so we were down this dump at the end of last year, and we have another salt truck to pick up with a hopper on it. But to lose one salt unit really tightens our timelines up. And whether like we've been having where it freezes in the morning, we almost can't keep up.
Okay.
But salt is a huge, which is also the reason these beds fail. Salt.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Questions? Okay, and we're going to go with Monroe Truck Equipment, and it's $9,344. Can I get a motion to approve the purchase and installation of a new dump box on Buildings and Grounds 2008 Ford F-350 4x4 dump truck? And the vendor's going to be Monroe Truck Equipment, and the cost is $9,344.
Moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Nay.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Do I call him? He's not in his seat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that didn't happen to me either time. Mr. Teray?
Aye.
He didn't hear the discussion, so he shouldn't be voting. Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Ken, you're up again.
Actually,
gonna be-
Mr.
it's gonna
McLean
be
is up
Keith?
again too. So Keith, if you want to go to the
Okay.
next one?
Bobcat?
Yeah, you can stay up here for a while, please.
The next purchase, replace our full can, 2007 model. We bought one of the,
I wasn't allowed to vote when I was there.
that's probably
When I
one
was a
of the
member,
full
she
pieces
told
of
me you
equipment
can't
that
vote
we
if you're
use
not
on
here for
sidewalks
discussion.
here. This piece of equipment,
He didn't even know what he was voting on.
it's like a Bobcat, four-wheel drive hydraulics. Again, we have this unit. This one is what we use to load the salt into our trucks. It goes about 17 miles an hour. If the village isn't in and we have the salt, that we're able to take it to the village and load our trucks. It will pick up a 1,500-pound load, 7 feet up in the air. This is one of the best pieces of equipment that we have, and most valuable. Snow removal, ground work, cross-country work. It takes all the attachments that are Bobcat, they're both Bobcat, both made by Bobcat. As far as skid steer in this unit uses all the same accessories and attachments. Down the road, we can get up to 40 different attachments for this unit. Again, it's just a vital piece of equipment to our shop. It's costing us money to keep it running right now. I think from March to right now, last March to right now, we've spent about $7,000 in repairs, was when there is a repair, it's expensive. And what they're having to do now is most of the time they've had to take it back to the shop and lift the whole chassis off to replace a couple hoses, things like that. We've got a leak now, a hydraulic leak that they think may be coming from the hydraulic motor. So it's getting old, it's tired, it needs to be replaced. It's also got a, like I said, the front end will lift 1,500 pounds, the back we can haul about a ton, and it's got a ton payload on the dump body itself, the dump bed. We also salt all the sidewalks between early learning center and the high school get salted with this unit. And it's also the only one that can dig our dumps out and make it stuff.
And this is also budgeted. We have it in the budget. It is not an extra expense also. Capitalized equipment. Yep.
Any questions?
Is there any salvageable benefit? Are we going to be able to recoup any of it?
They're giving us straight down $6,000 for the unit. You know, we thought, well, maybe we'll keep it in the back of it.
Oh, I
Now
see.
they're giving us $6,000 for it. I think we're best to take that and not put anything.
Oh, I see it here. Okay.
We will be keeping the existing salt spreader on it. There's a salt tank spreader. But that again is the same age. So we're opting to buy a new spreader with it.
Okay.
And having that as a spreader.
Is that diesel?
It is diesel. 60 horsepower.
Where do we still get our fuel over at Crete?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we pour our salt as well.
Over at Crete? No problems over there? I know we had some issues a couple years ago. No problems?
They don't have to want.
Okay.
Once was enough.
Any other questions?
Keith, what would you expect the useful life on the new piece of equipment? Similar, 10 years?
Probably 10 years. They say what happens to these is it's a year-round piece of equipment. So as soon as we get done with salt, we load it up with mulch, things like that, and then the mulch and the salt mix together, and they get refined, and they get up in the hooks and crannies, and that's where you start feeling some of the steel. They say we plan on having this completely undercoated, but still, when you start putting aggregates in beds and stuff, you start wearing through your protective coatings.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think 10 years.
As commercial use, or I assume they call this commercial use, is there any kind of factory warranty that comes with it?
There's
How long? Parts and labor, or?
It's got a 1 year all-inclusive warranty, I think, and then, bumper to bumper. And then it does have different warranties on the transmission system, and it's all one hydraulic system. Everything is done off the same hydraulic system.
Keith, do we provide training for our people on these pieces of equipment?
We did when we got it. Basically, we have 2 people that use this right now. I'm called into duty. But so the 2 people that use it right now are trained. One came straight from construction, and the other was one of our existing ground guys before the ground department went with it.
So is it you to sign them off on their training, or, okay, you sign them off? Okay.
And that was Bobcats at first, the company we would go with, they're more willing to come out and train too. They'll actually take them there for training, and they have a rodeo day where people learn how to do crazy stuff.
Rodeo day.
It's Bobcat Rodeo.
So,
Are they heated and AC, or just heat?
This one, yeah, it's got both.
Both? Cool.
No, you're not operating it.
and we requested 3 bids, but we only got 1.
That's absolutely right. And we called the other 2 companies, and I had the same problem last time. They're very territorial. Bobcat was full force manufacturer. So the others, at least last time they gave us letters, and this time I couldn't even get them to give us a letter.
Is that the one in Mokina? Isn't it?
Advocacy.
Oh, that's okay.
They're very good as far as working on our equipment. The way I understand it is Atlas is the only one that's going to get the municipal discount compared to the other 2. That's kind of how they say it.
So this is the only the only rep in this area that sells. Are there other pieces of similar equipment we could get a bid on, or is this?
But you want a Bobcat, so.
But this is very specific to what our need. Okay. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion to approve the purchase of the Bobcat Toolcat utility work machine and attachments from Atlas Bobcat?
Moved.
With the,
Second.
Hold on.
hold on,
She's
not done
done.
yet.
Oh,
With the cost
sorry.
of $65,601.
Okay, now who was first?
You want
Thank you. Roll call?
Mr. Teray?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Nay.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. One more thing.
The last one is
Two more.
on
There's two more.
asphalt.
Is this together?
two more?
4 and 5, are they separate or are they? There's two.
Okay,
Asphalt
sorry.
renovation.
So asphalt renovation, repair, and replacement? Keith?
Right, okay, exactly what it says, I don't think there's much argument here that anyone who's driven in our parking lot knows that we have repair basic. This is not all inclusive, this is not covering every parking lot and every hole, it's covering the majority of the bad areas. I have the two projects, running hand in hand here. Asphalt repair. The reason I separated them is because the people that we still don't necessarily have the equipment to do the repair. And because we are looking at grinding and milling a lot of the because we have areas that are completely failed. Those are the areas where we concentrate on. All potholes will be filled, everything's going to be effective where you can drive on it without worrying about losing your car.
Or your foot
And then
in the hole?
Well, it's a capital project, and it's just, this is all something that's gonna happen next year, and the next year, with our freeze-thaw cycles, especially like we're having like right now, you can, this kind of weather is just.
It's the worst.
For an asphalt, driveway of any type. And, I had conversations with, Pan, and I had conversations with Ann about maybe just adding a budget number of, I would say $100,000 per year for asphalt repair. Keep our parking lots from getting to where they're at right now. So this one, this is the buildings that I'm gonna work on with the extensive repair, and then, the seal coat bid covers some of these same repairs. So we'll, if it's a smaller patch, you can seal coat it this year. If it's a large patch, you wanna give it 6 months to a year to gas out before you would seal coat. So those areas aren't covered. In essence, it's just, our asphalt needs a lot less.
Are you talking about district-wide or just the high school? District-wide? Okay.
But you said it doesn't include everything. What does that mean specifically?
In other words, I'm not doing whole parking lots. I'm not gonna.
Okay.
Go in and grind a whole parking lot.
So these are repair areas.
Right.
So this is, it's gonna go, if you drive in here, especially this building,
Yes.
Crete-Monee, where you have probably a 10 by 20 section that's been replaced, there's gonna be more of those. So we're not just gonna fill a pothole and hope that the edges don't break away. They're literally gonna grind that out. And I've got specifics in the bid on whether if it goes over 2 inches or if they think that they're getting too close to the actual bed, they have to contact us and then we'll renegotiate that section. Because we want the repairs done right. But in some of them that are out here that were done probably 3-4 years ago are done right, you can tell, because they're not breaking up, the driveway's not breaking up around them. So I'm confident this is a good start.
Keith, was that Matthew Paving that did that, or have we done business with this company?
Matthew has done a couple work around here, and really, he did work for middle school, and I think he did a couple of patches here, and then one of the people that didn't do it this time also did some work.
Keith, can you explain why there is such a huge difference in these bids? What makes this, I mean, it goes from 89,000 to 304,000, the bids? Were they bidding on the same thing?
They should have been, but if you look at, the reason I asked you for footage on the sales sheet is so I can get an idea of what they were thinking. And you can tell our competitive bids were looking at the same areas where the real high bid that came in was Sanchez. He did $127,400 432 square feet compared to, your 39, 40,000 square feet, which means he didn't follow this specification. He was doing whole parking lot, when you start looking at that kind of area.
So what happens in the bid specs is that Keith will, as he develops the bid specs, will also mark the parking lot. So he will tell vendors, you need to go out and measure the amount that you're going, that's how they calculate what they're doing. And so some of these probably just did an aerial shot of the parking lot and just put their numbers together. That's
So
it.
there's like boxes out here in the,
Yes. Yep. Yes.
So you do not have a pre-mandatory meeting with the contractors, do you?
We did not do a bid walkthrough.
Okay. How did they find out about the bid? How did they
Advertised.
Advertised in the newspaper
And
and
everything.
on our website, and we called a couple companies, and one of them didn't bid, Aspen did. Yeah, everything that we did out of our shop goes through sometime, and then also on our website. And there's people that can sign up and be notified, and it goes on our website. So I believe if they sign up, they'll be notified of other stuff.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do in all of our bids is that as either Keith or I, or either any of our other administrators go out, if we collect, let's say, business cards from people that we meet, if when I go up to IASBO, talk to some vendors, and then I'll collect business cards. So what I consider those individuals, I keep those. And so let's say, and I'll just share this, the copier bid, we just did a copier bid. So we received 8 of those bids. And so when I collect business cards from people, I will send them out the actual bid specifications. I consider them a preferred vendor. So they are sent the bid specifications, so they get it for sure. Then we advertise, then we put it on our website and that. So we make sure that we maintain kind of a client list and that too, so that we are sure to get a numerous amount of bids as we go along and that.
Is our architect firm involved with these specific bids, not these? Are these sealed bids?
Yes, they're sealed bids. Yeah, they all have to be sealed. We always seal bids, even if we don't do a bid opening, they're always sealed. Yes.
any other questions? Can I get a motion to approve the contract with Matthew Paving for asphalt renovation, repair, and replacement at various CM 201U sites for a total of $89,362?
Moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mr. Touré?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. That's an accomplishment. One more thing, seal coating and restriping?
Seal coating and restriping, Keith?
Hey, yeah, this is more of an intermediate, preventive maintenance step for the parking lots that haven't filled yet. And, this helps to extend their life, and eventually, again, with the weather systems that we have here, you're gonna start losing asphalt no matter what, but this does extend the life of your asphalt. Helps keep it from, the water penetration, which is one of the biggest, problems with asphalt, in our area anyways. Water infiltration and the freeze-thaw. I've chosen areas that are still good. What they say about seal coating a bad parking lot is just like putting lipstick on a pig. It really doesn't. It doesn't help it. It makes it look better. This is going to help the parking lots that I've chosen to last longer before we have to get into more expensive repairs. And it also, for safety reasons, once we do this, we'll restripe. So I know some of our parking lots, you can't even see the stripes anymore.
Yeah, I see you have, okay, so this is a seal coat and restripe.
Right.
Okay, you have a tentative timeline when you want to start this? Is this after the school session is over?
Right after school ends.
Okay.
And I've gotten both bids that the two successful contractors have to work with each other, you know, and
Working.
myself to form a schedule.
Absolutely.
And we said we want to be done by, I believe, August 10th.
Okay.
Obviously, we want to make sure that the high school isn't being done during registration and Monee's not being done during summer school.
There's a lot of logistics of these projects, and sometimes you have to just close one lot, some people use the other lot, because you will probably have to do it during summer school. But you can, you know, do logistics and planning.
And our staff will be well aware, summer school staff, and
We keep people informed.
Have we done business with this company before that we're sending out? Do we have any,
On the field coat, I don't have to my knowledge.
have you done business with them for something else? I mean, it's half, again, I guess I'm just stymied here. They're pretty close in the footage, not that far off. But the bids are, one is half of the other. So I'm concerned if they're providing the quality. That's all I'm asking.
You have to follow the specification. If it doesn't get paid. But if you look at that pavement system, their quote on the other bid.
Right.
They were very high on the other bid.
But at least this one, they're close. The pavement systems before, their footage was off the,
That was the interest.
oh, okay,
But it was about the same, and they were twice as much.
okay.
Keith, do you know offhand if we required a performance bond from any one of these contractors? We did? Excellent. Okay.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion to approve the contract from Denler Inc. for the seal coating and restriping services at various CM201U sites for a total of $30,514?
Moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mr. Teray?
Aye.
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye, thank you. Motion carries. Human Resources. Pull it up. Can I get a motion to approve the certified staff resignation, educational support staff leave of absence, the educational staff return from leave of absence, the educational support staff resignation, and the non-union reduction in force?
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Neal?
Thank you. The personnel report reads as follows. The certified staff resignation is Maria Bovino. Educational support staff, leave of absence, Megan Costa, Natalie Garcia, Thomas Santiago, and Pamela Terry. Educational support staff return from leave of absence, Gary Ritter, Carlotta Robinson, Thomas Santiago, Phyllis Taylor, and Pamela Terry. Educational support staff resignation, Dylan Doyle, Lisa Garza, and Tanara Washington. Non-union reduction in force. All of these employees are permanent guest teachers. We release them every year. Many of them get hired back by the fall, just for reference. They are Gregory Barksdale, Catherine Benefield, Yvette Johnson, Catherine Masai, Florence Morales, Yolanda Perry, Rose Ringenberg, Morgan Smith, Tara Taylor, Sarah Tedeschi, Katrina Trejo, Stephanie Wilcoxon Jenkins, and Raymond Wright. And that ends the personnel report.
You know, and it seems somewhat of an oxymoron when you say they're permanent guest teachers, but you're going to bring some of them back.
You say that.
But so the permanent guest teachers, could you define that again for me?
Essentially, these are individuals who are, they're guest teachers who are called in, or they're there every day. They work every single day that the student are in attendance at their respective buildings, and they're there to fill in wherever needed. Typically, they fill in for the initial assignments that show up in the building. If there would be no assignments in their building, they can be sent to another building to fill in where needed. But these are guaranteed substitutes on a daily basis.
teacher meetings, last minute call-offs, things like that.
They do any number of things. A lot of them are qualified teachers themselves, so they will often fill long-term assignments and so forth. Sometimes it's teachers who haven't been able to secure their first position, so this is great experience for them. It's just, it's a very strong benefit for the district, and it gives them good experience as well.
So for the most part, they can go to bed at night and expect to get up in the morning to go to work.
They will
They
get up
do.
in the morning and come to work because
Not
they're
calling
assigned to
a
work
number
every
or
day.
Nothing like that.
No, they're there every day.
It's an automatic. They're paid at a slightly higher rate
Oh.
than the day-to-day subs as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question on the Exhibit A, way down on the last thing. Did we get that resolved?
That's, are we talking about?
Well, that's not part of
further-
this.
I think we're
It's not
talking a
part
different
of
agenda
this?
item.
No.
Yes. We're just talking about the personnel report right now.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Roll call?
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mr. Touré?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye, thank you. Motion carries. Do I need to read the names or?
We need to read the 4 names in the motion, yes.
Okay. Can I get a motion for the resolution, motion for consideration of a resolution for dismissal and non-renewal of certain probationary teachers? And they are Sharif Anahale, Audrey Lakes, Jeffrey Miller, and Thomas Williams.
Moved.
I'll second it. Mr. Neal?
Yes, each year, all of our teachers who are on cycle for evaluation have their performance evaluated by their administrators. And for non-tenured teachers, we do at some point have to make a determination whether they are going to be able to go forward and ultimately achieve tenure, or if they are not meeting our standards. And we, in some respect, and we need to allow them, we need to let them go so that they can find an opportunity that's a better fit. In this case, we had several teachers who were rated as needs improvement or unsatisfactory on their evaluations. In this case, all of them happened to have been given a second year because they were demonstrating some improvement at the end of the first year. However, that improvement was insufficient. One of the individuals, the first one, has already been released by the board. However, non-renewal is a formality we have to go through to ensure that individual is not on a recall list. So these individuals have had 2 years to reach our standards, and they have been not able to do so in accordance with the evaluation procedures. So we're recommending that they be dismissed.
Any questions?
I do have a couple of questions.
Open session questions?
Yes. Are any of these multiple year employees?
All of them are second year teachers.
Second year, and is there any, so this is based off of this year's evaluation?
Correct.
And can you say, I mean, have they all had previous evaluations that were unacceptable or any concerns brought previous year?
For first year teachers, we do have a lot of teachers, I don't want to say a lot, we do have some teachers who are rated as needs improvement. And that means that there were some areas they weren't quite to the proficient level in. What has to be done at that point is the person who's evaluating that teacher has to make a determination whether they feel, if given additional time, that this teacher would be able to improve to a proficient level. The problem with being a first-year teacher is you can't be evaluated till about mid-September, and it has to be finished by early mid-February. So you have a very short window to master the art of teaching in your first year. So sometimes we make the decision to move forward even if they're at a needs improvement level because we believe they might have that chance to improve to a proficient level. Once in a while, there are a few teachers who still don't make it at the end of that second year, and at that time we feel much more comfortable saying either they're going to be ultimately able to meet our standard or they're not. And so that's where we are with these particular individuals.
And who's making these recommendations?
Typically, what's their evaluator? It's going to be a building administrator. If the evaluator was not a principal, the principal would concur with the decision.
And have any of them entered rebuttals?
Not to my knowledge, no. I have not received any rebuttals from any of these individuals.
Does our process require that these individuals sign or agree to the performance appraisal they received? Or is this the notice that?
No employee has to agree to their evaluation. They do sign receipt.
Okay.
You know, it's very unfortunate because offhand, I do not know the percentage, but I know it's small of teachers that actually live within the district. And it looks as if we are losing 2 teachers that lives within the district. And again, I don't know the full story, and I value and trust our administrators for making a right call, but it's just unfortunate.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Mr. Toure?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Nay.
Mr. Brown?
Abstain.
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye, thank you. Motion carries. Let me make sure I have the right one. Can I get a motion for the consideration of a resolution for dismissal of non-certified administrator 2018-005?
Moved.
I'll second it. Mr. Neal?
The non-certified administrator in question is the Director of Technology, Mr. Juan Lyle. After being evaluated by his supervisor and being given an opportunity to complete a professional growth plan with assistance, this particular employee was evaluated as unsatisfactory, and therefore the administration recommends dismissal.
Thank you. Questions? Roll call?
I do have a question. Has Mr. Lau agreed to this? I don't know if I missed that information.
I'm sorry, Dr. Hall, I didn't
Has
hear
he
you.
agreed?
Has he agreed to this? Mr. Lau?
Has he
It's a-
agreed to, he has not agreed to dismissal certainly, and we have not received a signed resignation agreement.
This is a dismissal.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking. Okay. Well, I know he did agree. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking at the.
It's okay.
You finished up?
Now.
There's no further discussion in closed session on this particular person?
No, we have had discussions on this. There's been information in several FYIs. An email went out last week. I don't believe we have a need for closed session.
That can be the case, but that doesn't
Yeah.
negate that you can have further discussion. I just want to make note of that.
If we want to ask for a motion, we can do that, but all the information has been given out several times.
Yeah, we've gone through that where we've talked about things over and over and we still have conversations. So I don't think that's,
Well, if you want to go into closed session, we
applicable.
can.
I don't, I'm just saying, I'm just responding to what you were saying.
I just wanted to know if this particular employee is going to be, has he been given any type of due process?
Yes, he has. The evaluation process was that initially there was an evaluation that indicated concerns and problem areas. He certainly had every opportunity to present information contrary to what the administration presented. He had an opportunity to respond to any of the concerns, and he was given an opportunity of a period of, I believe, 90 days, give or take. I think it was actually more than 90 days by the time the final evaluation was completed, to make substantive improvement. And again, if there was anything that was false or incorrect, to correct that or present evidence on his own behalf. So he was given full due process, just as we have any other administrator who's been in this situation.
I recall last year, I think it was last year, there were issues outlined with Mr. Lyle by our previous business, assistant superintendent of business. How were those addressed through HR?
HR gets involved when there is an evaluation that indicates a needs improvement or unsatisfactory level of performance. And that's when we would work with the supervisor to develop a professional growth plan and try to give that opportunity for that administrator to improve. And last year, there was never an evaluation received. I did take the concerns to the director. However, without detailed information from that particular supervisor, it was difficult to affect improvements last year or to try to form an improvement plan at that time. The superintendent did begin the process of working with that, but never did complete that. So as far as I know, this is the first time that the full process was completed.
But you said there were no details. There were details. We had a personnel committee and discussed these. So knowing that going into this year, how was that handled by HR?
We evaluated and we provided that information so that he knew exactly where the concerns were, what needed to be done to correct those concerns, what resources were available, where he could get assistance if he needed that assistance. And he certainly had plenty of opportunity to affect that. We also extended the time because we wanted to give from what was initially given so that we could give more time for some of the longer tasks to take place, because he indicated he needed some more time for those things. And so we did grant that extension of time. So yes, we have been applying the entire process to this particular employee. This began in September, and we're just finishing up here in April. So, I mean, that's a 7-month period that we've been working with. As far as last year, like I said, what triggers the professional growth plan is the evaluation. No evaluation was ever completed.
No evaluation was completed. Mr. Sermer, were you made aware of any issues with this employee upon your arrival?
Upon my arrival, I had discussion with the superintendent, who at that time was supervising director of technology, and that it was not in my office. And so the discussion that we had was for him to be supervised by me, and that did not apprise me of any situation that I had or any concerns in that. So again, to piggyback off the what Lyle had said, it started actually in November when the evaluation was given and the professional growth plan was developed at that time, and that with goals. During then that process, the timeline went until actually March. However, as Lyle stated, that we extended that another month in order for him to achieve some of those goals, and did not.
So I'm a little kind of confused somewhat. Okay. We had a couple meetings.
Can I interrupt? Can we go into closed session to discuss this any further? Does anybody have an objection to that?
I think we're good. We beat this horse to death. The bottom line is the man competently performing the duties? That's the only question I have.
Make a motion.
And the board has received updates on closed session and prior, I believe, committee of the whole meetings. So this is not the first this matter's come to us.
Nobody is, and personally, I haven't questioned that. I just believe I have an opportunity to talk. If you want to do it in a closed session, you can do it out here. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not questioning about information that was shared or anything like that. I'm just trying
I
to
would
get
feel
some
more
answers.
comfortable going into closed session for it.
Okay.
So I will make a, well, we have old business, new business.
Oh, you have a motion on the table.
Yeah, so, yeah, this is why I don't like making motions at a time. Who made that motion?
I did, and you seconded it.
Galbraith and Gasparo.
Janine, would you like to rescind your motion?
Is there a general consensus to even vote to go into closed session?
I was going to
Do we
make a
want-
motion.
Okay.
I think Mrs.
Would you rather
Galbraith
take
will
a consensus?
have to rescind the motion, right? Remove it. Withdraw the motion. Are you willing to do that?
Do we have a consensus to go into closed session?
That's not, that's not,
I'm fine with that.
Okay, Janine, do you want to rescind your motion?
If we're not going to go into closed session, let's just keep this train rolling.
Okay. I just don't want to talk personnel issues outside of closed session, Mr. Brown. I want you to have all your answers, but I also don't want to discuss them.
But get clarity on discipline with employees and whether it's open session or closed.
Well, we're talking about a specific employee though, so.
But certain things can be discussed, but just get clarity on that. I just wanted clarity with, I believe issues were brought prior. In my personal opinion, they were not taken as seriously because of feelings towards his supervisor. And I just find it ironic how now it's an issue. That's just personally my thoughts.
Okay, we still have a motion on the table. Any other questions? Roll call?
Mr. Touré?
aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Nay.
Mr. Brown?
Nay.
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Can I get a motion to table item 10A4, please?
Moved.
For clarity, what are we tabling it for if we just approved the other one?
There's an item on the agenda that we are not going to
So we
have.
would just remove it, because tabling means we're gonna come back to it.
That's, right. To table means to take off. It doesn't have to come back.
And what?
I need a
That's not
second.
true.
Anybody?
Second.
Oh,
These are all things that I learned at National. You don't have to remove, you can table. Do we have it?
Yes. We have a first Galbraith, second Roop, Terry, right? Okay, thank you.
Roll call?
Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Nay.
Dr. Hall?
Nay.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mr. Touré?
aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Do we have any old business?
I do. I wanted to get an update on the, we had a discussion, I don't know how many weeks ago or maybe months now, about the situation on the TIFs at University Park. What was the resolution, Mr. Sermon, whether our attorneys were going to pursue the funds that were owed to us, or did they come to the conclusion that we had money coming? What was the outcome on that?
I sent over a couple questions to our legal team, and let me just share this because I just received the response today at 5:30, so I brought it along with me so I can share it with the board. I asked specifically to our legal team, since University Park transferred money from TIF funds to the operating fund, does the district have any legal options afforded them in declaring that surplus revenue that should have gone to the taxing bodies? The second question I asked them is, how do we get an accounting of this? And then the third question I asked them was concerning TIF 3 in University Park that, according to records, was supposed to expire in 2016. Had that expired? As far as I know, it did not. So I try and find those answers. So the response is, and I will share this with the board too, but I'll read a little bit of it publicly because it's kind of a lengthy email, and I didn't, in that. But what they said to me was that on a legal remedy, it is confirmed that University, and I'm reading verbatim from the email, it is confirmed that University Park used TIF revenues for general village expenses unrelated to TIF or transferred TIF revenues to general village operating funds. And they believe there could be, again, it's like could be legal remedies for the district against the village. Under the Illinois Municipal Code, the use and transfer of TIF funds is not permitted in the fashion alleged to have been achieved by the village, and the school district has a definite financial interest to be protected by the statutory limitations on how TIF revenues are to be used, since it results in a loss of revenue to the district. However, since the creation of the TIF Act 40 years ago, we are not aware of any lawsuits being brought to enforce the school district's rights to such revenue. Okay, so there may be a course of legal action. However, there never has been brought any legal or lawsuits against any district or any villages or TIFs. From an accounting standpoint, the exact use of TIF revenues is a matter of public record, and it would not be surprising if you did not receive any answers to FOIAs from University Park, since the village has also failed to file or post online the annual reports which the law requires from each municipality regarding TIF districts. The district's next step, if they do not respond to FOIAs, would be to file a complaint with the Public Access Counselor Office or the Illinois Attorney General, or to file a lawsuit to enforce FOIA responses with or without waiting for a result from PAC, who is the Public Accessor Counselor. While there are some legal avenues to file a lawsuit for an accounting, it is not clear that this cause of action is applicable here. It is more advisable to pursue the district's remedies under FOIA. Then he said, given the length of that, we would recommend judicial enforcement if the board truly wishes to pursue that matter. Okay. And then on the TIF termination, excuse me, he did contact the Will County Clerk's office, and we have found that the date to expire was 2016 for the one TIF. However, they are still able to collect taxes for the next year. So even though the law says 23 years, it's really, it can go another year and they can collect those TIFs. However, the clerk did say that they do not check to see if TIFs expire. So it is basically up to the village to notify them when TIFs expire. However, he did say that since the situation is taking place in UP, they would be on top of that to see if the proper paperwork comes through. I will share with you that I am also aware that that's going to be happening. So I will be on top of that also to see if that TIF will expire also. That TIF expiring, I think, would generate us, if memory serves, and I'm just looking at some numbers here, probably about $400,000 or $500,000 we would get once though that would be considered new construction to the district. Now, that does not include if there were any surplus funds in that TIF account. That would just be additional tax revenue that we would receive once that EAV goes onto our books. Okay. So that was the update I shared. I know that was pretty quick. but I can also share this with the board. Again, I just got it today at 5:30, so I can get that out right away to everyone. Yeah, I will try to do that, and I really haven't analyzed this a lot, so you're going to have to bear with me on this one. I think from an accounting standpoint, to see actually what the numbers are, we should do that and request FOIAs for that, where that we would actually do a FOIA, my office would do a FOIA. I'd work with Dr. Clark or Natalie, one of us, to do those and request the specific FOIA so that we have an accounting of those things. As I mentioned to the board before, every TIF should have its own account and its own really set of books, and that so that you can see clearly what those funds are being spent on and where they are going, and that. So we would request that from an accounting standpoint. At that point, then, once we get those, I think then you come back and look at what the legal ramifications are, if any, that we would have or that the board would have to recover any of that money. As I said once before, and that there's no case law for this, but there's a rationale that if money was transferred from a TIF account to an operating account, it could be considered surplus money. That should be surplus revenue that should be distributed to all the taxing bodies at the conclusion of that TIF. It's a theory, but it's never been proven in a court of law, as John has said, that there's never been any lawsuits filed on that. Okay. And again, on the TIF termination, which is what I had asked, I had really asked about, and that's one of monitoring that will make sure we continue to monitor that and make sure we continue to also balloon our levy when that time comes, to make sure we capture that new construction when it comes off the books.
Yeah. If you could
So,
put
Ms.
that
Trey,
in
I don't
two
know if that helped
sentences and
you.
an email to us, that would be great.
Okay, I will do that. So, Mr. Trey, I hopefully that helps a little bit, but.
Well, I just want to know what the plan of attack is here, what we're going to do. I mean, it's one of our villages, and, friends should be friends. Friends should share with friends, and they have a obligation to share.
Right.
And we didn't get our money. So, we have this money. If indeed we're entitled to the money, I think we should get the money. See, we have children in all our communities, and children come from everywhere, and we need the money. I mean, we're sitting here talking about money constantly. So,
right.
Let's be realistic about it. If it's any of the villages owes us money, by all means, I'm for collecting the money. Let's get the money and use it for our children. That's what it's for.
I think one of the things that I will do is I will sit down with Dr. Clark, who's very familiar with FOIAs, and that's so. And I'll put a plan together. I think we should start with, and I think a couple board members may have recommended this before, but I think we start in requesting some information from them. I will first reach out to them, though, before I even do a FOIA. I will reach out. I'll make sure I document all of my steps as I move forward. So I'll reach out to them by phone first to see if I can gain some information from them. If that doesn't work after a couple times, then I'll work with Dr. Clark so that we can submit a FOIA to them requesting that information. I'll make sure we document that. I'll make sure I report back to the board on those steps. I think the first step on our regard is to find out what amount of money we're talking about first. And then once we have that and have that information, then the board can look at what options they have at their disposal, if any, or if they want to take action on any of those.
Well,
I don't have any idea how much in that. I do know that, as John has mentioned in here, we do know that they have transferred revenues from the TIF accounts to the general operating accounts. I have seen that online. In fact, I printed it out online. I think I saw 3 years where there was a transfer of anywhere from $1 to $2 million per year that was done in that. So, again, you just kind of look at those numbers. If it was $3 or $4 million, we get about 60% of that, as a taxing body. Then the other taxing bodies get the rest of those amounts. So, but again, I don't know the exact numbers. That's what I don't know, because as I shared with the board, and also John has shared, they have not filed the appropriate reports with the controller, and those are not posted online. Now, whether there has been an audit done or not, there's supposed to be a financial audit done on each one of those TIFs, and then those are reported to the controller and posted on the websites. So, the villages of Monee and Crete that have those TIFs have done that. And I know they only post the past 3 years, and when I looked, they were not posted on there. There was nothing for University Park.
Ken, can I suggest you keep a paperwork trail on everything you do?
Sure, without a doubt.
I understand the phone call thing and it's nice, but, when you're dealing with anything in the legal realm, I think a paperwork trail is very important.
Well, I'll do that. I just think I'll start with a phone call, but I'll document when I've done that, or if I've left a message and all of that. And then I'll start with the paper trail also when it comes to submitting a FOIA and all that too.
Thank you.
You bet.
I also have another old business if nobody else does. Does anybody else? I talked to you about the senior fees. We had a discussion about senior class fees, and it was like $100,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. And like in comparable schools with even more free and reduced lunch, we're collecting fees from all the students.
You're talking about waivers?
Yeah, waivers. And we're kind of carte blanche giving waivers out and not making any attempt to collect these fees. And I was trying to figure out what the logic was on doing this when districts that are poorer than we are collecting these fees and are successful in doing it. Why are we just carte blanche writing off $100,000? I mean, what did you find out about that?
Sure. One of the things that Dr. Clark and I have been working on, and actually I have them ready to go actually, is that I've looked at our collection process when it comes to fees. We've looked at also our fee waiver process and our free and reduced lunch application process also. So I am going to be bringing a recommendation to the board in May of a new process that would also include a collection agency, quite honestly. Because if you look at the Illinois School Code and also the administrative code, school districts do not have a lot of, I'll just say, power to collect those fees also. So we have to abide by that. One of the big things to understand is that in the collection of fees, students cannot be harmed in any way. All right. So, using that premise, if there are things that are being done to harm the student, that cannot occur. And that. So I've detailed it out. Dr. Clark and I have worked on this. I have a draft of that ready to go. What I've done actually, and what we're doing right now is sharing it amongst ourselves so that we can edit it, make sure it meets all our goals. And then I'm going to be bringing it to the board as a proposal and share with them. Including our fee waiver process. So everything will be documented, everything is written down so that all schools are consistent with this and that. The only really ramification you have, and it's very specific in the school code, is by going to a collection agency and that at the conclusion. I've used that in the past. I've used one in the past where the accounts are turned over to them, and then they will pursue that. Usually the collection rate is 65% goes back to the district, 35% goes to the collection agency and that. So again, I'll have that recommendation ready to go. I have all the references when it comes to the Illinois School Code and when it comes to the administrative code included in this, specifically on what can be waived and what cannot be waived also.
Thank you.
Yep.
You done, Mike? I have one question. At the committee of the whole, I brought, someone had asked me to ask why all the directors do not attend the committee of the whole and or the actual BOE meetings. I believe that I was told it had to be discussed. Is this the place we're supposed to be discussing it? And how do we want to go forward?
Is that after I left?
I don't know.
Maybe the whole, I must have been.
When did you leave? Oh, maybe Nelson, was that after she left?
Yes. I think we should create a whole, I mean, is the reason, I mean, is that a board decision as to whether?
That was what the discussion evidently, nobody really knew, but it
Sorry,
had been
Carrie.
brought to me that there were directors who don't attend all the meetings and they wanted to know why some do and some don't. And nobody really had the answer. I mean, Pam Panza said that she was asked by a board member one time and she started coming. Juan Lyle told me that, I believe he said that he was expected to be there. He was told he was expected to be there. I think Keith was expected to be there. So there was different answers to what was going on.
Okay.
So
Mr. Patton,
there was
can you and I
supposed to be
have
a discussion and I don't know where the discussion takes place.
Okay, Mr. Patton and I will have a discussion about that, and we'll have an agenda item if we don't come to some resolution,
Okay.
or the May Committee of the Whole. Any other old business? New business?
No business, real quick. I had asked a question, I believe it was directed to probably Dr. Clark regarding, maybe it wasn't, having to go outside, the athletes having to go outside, circumvent the process, and for whatever reason, in inclement weather, to get from point A to point B, and they wasn't allowed to get from point A to point B by traveling through or walking through the schools. I don't know what.
I think it was decided that that wasn't actually true.
Right. It was someone in the audience at our last meeting, I believe it was security, that basically said that that wasn't accurate, that these are kids that know they're supposed to be in one area and then choose to go someplace else, and then they're locked out of the area and would have to walk around. I would have to go back and
Yeah,
look
these
at
were
the-
athletes specifically.
That is correct.
Athletes, yes.
Yes, and I believe someone was here in the audience. I would have to go back and look at the minutes.
I think it was Officer Reuter that explained how that's happening.
Yes. Let me go
Okay.
back and I'll send it to you.
Once they're done with school and they go to their sport, they're not allowed back into their lockers. They have to stay, they have to bring everything with them from their lockers,
Yeah,
is
I'm
my
not sure if
understanding.
that's
So if
the
they are.
scenario, but
yeah.
it was told to me, by a couple parents. Actually, it was two different parents called me up and said that their child was athletes and they had to go outside in inclement weather to go to practice or something. I don't know the whole story, but
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Katie happened to be on duty.
So if it's a procedure for safety, whatever, I would just like to know so I can share it. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll have that information for you. I will get in contact with high school administration and get their procedures, but I will also get with Terry to get that information as well.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Any new business? We have no need for closed session. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
I'll second it. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.